The crate was engraved with golden array patterns, and upon opening it, the ice crystal released a creeping cold. The wooden deck crackled as frost formed swiftly, and several guards from Luyun Manor hurriedly moved aside. A woman! Su Yihu's chin puffed out like a frog's inflating throat, his skin emitting a fiery light as it resisted the approach of the frosty chill. Jia Changshuan stepped back twice, shaking his frozen trouser legs, and explained, "This woman has a special physique, and her identity seems quite extraordinary. We captured her by accident, but after capturing her, she froze herself, and despite all our efforts, we haven't managed to thaw her. Thinking your sect master is well informed, he might know her origins and physique." "All right, I got it." Su Yihu nodded and eyed the ice crystal, casually calling nearby disciples to carry the ice crystal into the ship's hold. Along the way, many disciples witnessed this supernatural scene, but most simply glanced curiously a couple of times before turning back to escort human slaves. Working well into the night, over 20 large ships heavily loaded with human slaves formed a formidable fleet that set sail, heading downstream on the wide Golden Sand River. "So you are Su Jie?" On ship number 7, in a spacious room on the upper deck, Su Yihu sat sprawled on a tiger-skin chair. His robust physique made the wooden chair creak, raising doubts about whether the legs of the chair might snap. In front of him stood Su Jie and 2 other outer disciples from Ghost Ridge Palace. "Met Brother Su." Su Jie bowed his hands, unsure of why the other had suddenly summoned him. "I heard you're on good terms with Senior Yu. Well, I've recently been short-staffed, so you'll be in charge of patrolling the 3rd level of the cabin," said Su Yihu. Then turning his gaze toward the 2 standing with Su Jie, "Luo Juanji, you manage the 2nd level of the cabin, and Chen Guoqiong, you oversee the 1st level." "Yes, rest assured, Brother Su." The 2 outer disciples' faces brightened with joy, delighted to be connected with an inner disciple, something many disciples hoped for. "All right, you can leave now." Su Yihu waved his hand, then seemed to remember something else and said, "Right, go down and bring up a few human slaves. Younger females, their blood tastes better." Luo Juanji was quick-witted and immediately responded, "I'll find them right away," definitely choosing the younger ones. Chen Guoqiong hesitated for a moment, unable to stop himself from saying, "Brother Su, these are to be delivered to the sect, and there are crew members from Luyun Manor on board. If we do this and it gets discovered, won't it cause a scandal? Are you teaching me how to do my job?" Su Yihu's expression turned cold. "No, I wouldn't dare." Realizing his mistake, Chen Guoqiong trembled slightly. Su Yihu's expression softened slightly, and he spoke indifferently. We've struggled along the way, and with so many human slaves, some are bound to die of sickness or exhaustion. When the time comes, we'll just inform Luyun Manor. As long as it doesn't exceed a certain limit, I doubt they will make much fuss about it." Chen Guoqiong nodded repeatedly, his face wearing a flattering smile. "Understood. Brother Su is right. I was making too much of a fuss. I'll go find someone right away." With that, he turned to leave, intending to make up for his slip by fetching the human slaves. "Did I say you could leave?" Su Yihu watched as Chen Guoqiong approached the door, a malicious smile curling the corners of his mouth. His jawbone dislocated like a snake's, his chin swelling, with a surge of firelight from within. The next moment, a torrent of raging magma spewed forth, instantly dousing Chen Guoqiong and igniting him into a human-shaped torch. His flesh melted away in the flames, and his screams lasted only a brief 2 seconds before cutting off abruptly, leaving nothing but a charred skeleton crumpled on the ground. "To think I wasted my breath explaining. I certainly don't want fools as my subordinates." Su Yihu closed his mouth, letting out a mocking laugh. Brother Su, I'll bring the human slaves right away." Seeing this, Luo Juanji's face turned pale, fearing that if he had misspoken just now, Chen Guoqiong's fate could have easily befallen him. Su Jie's gaze was calm. He had interacted with enough inner disciples to know their fickle nature. Hardly any of them were easy to get along with. "All right, you 2 go ahead and take the body away. I don't want it to be an eyesore." Su Yihu waved his hand, and Su Jie dragged Chen Guoqiong's remains out of the room. Brother Su, together? Luo Juanji looked towards Su Jie, hoping to accompany him to fetch the human slaves. He was mainly afraid of facing Sui Hu alone. That man was terrifying and could kill without a second thought. Capturing human slaves isn't my job. You go by yourself. Su Jie glanced at Luo Juanji and dumped Chen Guoqiong's remains into the Golden Sand River, letting the river water lay them to permanent rest on the riverbed. It's just a little connection with Senior Yu. Why the pretense? Luo Juanji made a sour comment and, not daring to delay, hurriedly went to select human slaves. Su Jie returned to his room, fetched Gu Weonian and Chen Yun, and then headed to the third-level cabin he was responsible for. As soon as they entered, a pungent, sour odor rushed into their nostrils. In the sealed environment, the stagnant, murky air made the smell even more intense. As a specially modified slave trading ship, the lower cabin was packed with densely crowded human slaves. Huddled together in the sunless cabin were the sounds of children crying, the stench of seasickness vomit, and faces of numb despair. Most eyes had already lost the sparkle of sentient beings, seemingly resigned to await death's approach. Patrolling disciples, come open a few ventilation holes, give them some food, and bring over some clothes and medicine for warmth. These are all assets of Ghost Ridge Palace. We can't have too many die on the way. Su Jie told some disciples on patrol at the site. Who are you?
Su Ye.
From now on, I'm in charge of the third level. If you disagree, take it up with Brother Su. Ah, it turns out to be Brother Su. Forgive us for not recognizing you sooner. We will do as you say right away. The group of disciples immediately straightened up and obediently carried out Su Jie's orders. Several new ventilation holes were opened, and a crowd of human slaves pressed forward to breathe the outside air mingled with the cold wind, frantically scrambling for the scant food being brought in. They cherished every chance to stay alive, to eat their fill, for even in death, they wanted to depart as satiated souls. Thank you, sir. Eat quickly. Who knows if we'll have such luck again? Sir, please show some mercy and help me get out. I'm not even 20 years old. I don't want to die here. In the cabin, some human slaves heard Su Jie's conversation with the disciples. Many crowded at the bars of the ventilation holes, expressing their gratitude to Su Jie and pleading for a chance to live. Su Jie didn't respond. He then reminded Chen Yun and Gu Weonian with a few more words to rotate and watch over the cabin in his absence. Otherwise those disciples would surely take liberties. After finishing all this, Su Jie continued his inspection, sparing no criticism for the disciples who were carelessly performing their duties. Soon, all the disciples stationed on the third level of the cabin knew there was a superior who liked to reprimand them. As Su Jie went on with his corrections, he reached the end of the cabin and saw a sealed single cabin. The door of the cabin was covered with a layer of frost that sealed it with ice, the cold air freezing the surrounding walls as the white frost made Su Jie tighten his clothes. That Amber girl, huh? Muttered Su Jie. Since the third-level cabin was closest to the bottom of the ship and Sui Hu lived in the upper level, he had thrown her into this most marginal cabin to imprison her in order to keep the chill emitted by the ice crystal amber from disturbing his rest. I wonder what her story is. Shaking his head, Su Jie turned to leave, planning to check if the other disciples had corrected their behavior according to his rules. But as Su Jie had just taken a few steps away, an unusual sensation of being watched arose in his heart. Su Jie quickly turned back. The ice-sealed door flashed, and an icy crystal butterfly retreated back into the crack of the door. Interesting. After thinking for a moment, and seeing no one around, Su Jie left a reconnaissance dragonfly on guard and walked toward the ice-sealed door. The closer he got, the more a chill eroded his organs. Su Jie extended his right hand, and the thousand-handed centipede wriggled out from his sleeve, with several pale corpse hands exerting force to smash the layer of ice. Pushing open the door, Su Jie went in alone. Even through the thick ice crystal amber, Su Jie still felt a strong wave of spiritual radiance. The clothes, shoes, necklace, and earrings she wore were all emitting this ripple, none of them ordinary items. Circling the ice crystal amber, Su Jie tapped it with his finger, and the next moment his hand jerked back as if electrocuted. The ice crystal amber had nearly frozen his blood solid. Tch, such a cold sleeping beauty. Is she alive or dead? She can't breathe in there, can she? After studying for a moment, Su Jie breathed on the part of the ice crystal covering the girl's cheeks and used the thousand-handed centipede as a hand warmer, rubbing it on the ice to get a clearer view, wanting to see if she was dead or alive. Sizzle! The thousand-handed centipede shivered and curled up, clinging tightly to Su Jie's palm, squeaking in protest against Su Jie's inhumane act. Su Jie leaned closer, observing the girl in the ice crystal amber who had her eyes tightly shut. Her facial features were delicate and her skin was as white as snow, with slightly curved eyelashes and a hint of playfulness, yet also a faint shyness around her eyes and brow. The air was very quiet, and as Su Jie stared for several minutes, the girl did not even flutter her eyelashes, apparently completely unconscious. Looks like she really is dead. How boring. Su Jie shook his head and sighed as he pounded his knees. Two pale arms grew out from his waist, hit the ground, and mimicked the footsteps of a walking person as they stepped one by one toward the door. At last, he walked out of the room, the two arms also conveniently closing the door behind him. Bang! The room fell into silence, with only the chill spreading through the air. Several more minutes passed, and inside the ice crystal amber, the girl's eyelashes trembled slightly, followed by her moist, bright eyes slowly opening. "Ya!" The girl's eyes widened, like a startled deer, thinking the room was empty when in reality, there was a man staring at her with a half-smile. "Yo, I thought you were dead. Turns out you were just pretending to be asleep." Su Jie stroked his chin and chuckled lightly. "She's still too green, duped so easily. You're the one who's dead, tricking me like that." The girl wrinkled her nose, her crisp voice coming through the ice crystal. Surprisingly, she could still make gestures and facial expressions inside it. "What is your name?" Su Jie sat on the ground, in no hurry to leave, as the girl before him clearly came from no ordinary background. "Why should I tell you?" The girl had a fierce expression, but it didn't scare anyone. Su Jie raised an eyebrow, pretending to stand up. "Not telling, huh? Well then, I might just inform the others so we can figure out how to break your little turtle shell." At these words, the girl immediately became anxious and shouted, "Wait, my name is Ning Xinyue. There, I told you, what do you really want?" Su Jie pointed to himself and asked, "Do you know who I am? A villain? A thug? A filthy kidnapper?" Ning Xinyue blurted out a string of words that could infuriate anyone. "Ha ha, all you said is correct, but still not quite accurate. My official title is a demon cultivator who has killed countless people. Now, do you understand what I want?" Su Jie sneered twice, unintentionally revealing a murderous aura that was enough to silence a crying child. "You want to rob me of my dignity." It was clear that Ning Xinyue was truly frightened, her pale face tightly clutching her own collar. "Wrong." Su Jie shook his finger, correcting Ning Xinyue's mistaken assumption, and said, "You must come from a major cultivation power, right? Share the cultivation techniques you know, and I will keep your awakening a secret. Otherwise, right now, this ship is surrounded by demon cultivators. If they discover you're awake, they will use every means to capture you, and then you'll really be in trouble." Ning Xinyue's clothes and jewelry all sparkled with a spiritual charm, characteristics of someone from a significant power and likely of no ordinary status. "You promise you'll keep your word?" Biting her tender lips, Ning Xinyue appeared visibly relieved upon hearing that Su Jie wasn't after her body, and showed little resistance to his request. "Of course, I am very trustworthy." "A demon cultivator's trustworthiness? Do you have a choice right now?" Su Jie's remarks made Ning Xinyue realize the direness of her situation, reluctantly parting her lips slightly. "Fine, I'll tell you, but don't blame me if you can't remember it yourself. This is called the Mysterious Shadow Secret Technique, which is based on the principle of yin and yang, initiating the bright path, naturally flowing, hidden within the Heavenly Guardian technique, requiring golden threads to weave veins, winding silk into wind. Su Jie took out paper and pencil, jotting down everything Ning Xinyue said. Besides just the spoken words, he had Ning Xinyue explain the detailed pathways and related nodes. After recording everything, which amounted to thousands of words, and listening to Ning Xinyue explain it once more, Su Jie released the thousand-handed centipede for protection and said, "I'll try it first. If something's wrong. See this? This 3-refinement poisonous insect? Don't blame me. Humph. I'm not like you. I have no interest in deceiving others." Ning Xinyue was very haughty, clearly holding a grudge about the earlier deception by Su Jie. After checking the reconnaissance dragonfly and confirming no one was approaching, Su Jie sat cross-legged and attempted to cultivate the mysterious shadow secret technique magic skill Ning Xinyue had just taught him. No sooner had he begun than his shadow abruptly lengthened. His chest felt stifled, spiritual power within him became chaotic, and a trickle of blood seeped from the corner of his mouth. Ning Xinyue was dumbfounded, staring bewilderedly at Su Jie, wondering if she had somehow relayed the cultivation technique incorrectly. A moment later, Ning Xinyue finally understood what was happening and couldn't help but burst into laughter, tears streaming down her face. "Ha ha ha! What kind of cultivation aptitude is this? You actually made yourself vomit blood. So silly, so silly. This cultivation technique is quite complicated." Su Jie wiped the blood from the corner of his mouth. This mysterious shadow secret technique was more complex than the 100 poison refining goo scripture and bodyworm focusing method he had learned before. It required not only allowing the spiritual energy to travel through hundreds of meridians in the body along a predefined route, but also precisely controlling the functioning of several major human acupoints. "It's because you're too weak. I got it on my first try." Ning Xinyue finally found an opportunity to get back at Su Jie. She did not skimp on her mockery and enjoyed watching him struggle. "You can't generalize about everyone. I indeed have limited room for improvement in terms of talent, but it doesn't matter since I am a demon cultivator. There are many ways to enhance my strength, such as, for instance, kidnapping young ladies." Su Jie shrugged his shoulders, and Ning Xinyue suddenly couldn't laugh anymore. You. Ning Xinyue felt irritated but had no way to vent it, as her status as a captive couldn't be changed. Aside from this mysterious shadow secret technique, you must have other magic skills, right? Su Jie temporarily set aside his practice of the mysterious shadow secret technique, as it was something he couldn't grasp in a short time. Ning Xinyue's eyes rolled around, and she crisply said, "I know many more magic skills, but unless you rescue me, I won't teach them to you. Otherwise, once you learn all the techniques, I won't have any value left. Who knows what you might do?" Su Jie was taken aback and chuckled. "You have that kind of mind, huh? Don't look down on me." Ning Xinyue puffed her cheeks, finding Su Jie detestable no matter how she looked at him. "Rescuing someone, I don't see any benefits for me right now. First, let's see the effects once you've mastered this mysterious shadow secret technique. How long will you need to learn? With your poor talent, it's difficult for you to even grasp the basics in a month." Upon hearing this, Ning Xinyue instantly became anxious. "Without seeing the effects, how can I know the level of your secret technique? It might just be a juggling trick, and I can't trust merely what you say." Then, seemingly making up her mind, Ning Xinyue glared and said, "Come closer. Place your palm on the ice crystal. Let go of your own limitations. I'll guide your cultivation." Su Jie had been waiting for these words. He sat down cross-legged on the ground, extending his left hand and placing it on the ice crystal. An extreme cold transferred from the crystal, and Su Jie's arm was immediately coated with a layer of frost. The frost roamed over his skin, transforming into several streams of cold air like arrows, guiding the flow of spiritual energy within Su Jie's body. These streams of cold air acted like diligent teachers, helping Su Jie familiarize himself with the operational route of the mysterious shadow secret technique. After about 10 minutes, Su Jie's shadow started to change. The shadow suddenly elongated, rose from the ground in a three-dimensional form, flowed like water, and eventually took the same shape as Su Jie himself. Su Jie turned to look at the shadow, and the shadow simultaneously looked back at him. Su Jie blinked, and the shadow across from him mimicked the blinking motion, as if looking in a mirror. Hiss! Su Jie, amazed, reached out to touch it, and the figure across from him did the same. Their palms passed right through each other's bodies as if touching air. The shadow was completely intangible. You really look handsome. Su Jie spoke. The mouth of the shadow across from him moved in sync, but no sound came out. Shameless, since shadows can't even talk. Ning Xinyue looked disgusted, wondering how thick-skinned this man could be. Can't talk, huh? Then it's a bit lacking. Su Jie felt somewhat regretful. If it could talk or even physically touch, it would have been the perfect puppet substitute. Before he could try a few more times, the shadow that had transformed into his likeness suddenly started fluctuating, as if it were glitching, and then abruptly disappeared. Ning Xinyue's voice came from the ice crystal, explaining, mysterious shadow secret technique lets the shadow mimic oneself, but the shadow has no offensive capabilities. It can only confuse the enemy and cause them to misjudge their attacks. Currently, your proficiency is too low, and you can only make the shadow perform mirrored actions. Like me, I can simultaneously condense 3 different shadows, each performing unique actions. You still need more practice. The imitation is so realistic, it's just like the real thing. Su Jie shook the frost off his left hand, impressed by how the shadow's stature, scent, and spiritual charm were exquisitely imitated. Despite having control range, time limit, and the number of shadows limited, it couldn't be said to not be impressive. Often, when cultivators fight, a critical killing move based on a misjudgment happening on the shadow could potentially overturn the situation instantly. It's only somewhat useful in the Yunling realm. Cultivators in the secret realm wouldn't be deceived. I seldom use it myself. Ning Xinyue was smug, very satisfied with Su Jie's astonished performance. Speaking of which, for someone who knew so many incredible magic skills, how exactly were you captured? Su Jie smiled at Ning Xinyue, his words making the young girl's face turn red. That was because they were too despicable, slipping drugs into my drink. Luckily, I was clever and immediately used the 9-yin ice seal, thwarting their efforts against me. Ning Xinyue grumbled, amusing Su Jie. Thinking about how easily he had tricked her before, it was clear that Ning Xinyue was naive with hardly any Jianghu experience. Although she grasped numerous cultivation techniques, a slight lack of awareness could lead to downfall. Su Jie shook his head and said, "You call that being clever? For a mysterious lady like yourself to venture out without any bodyguards. You must have secretly run away from home, didn't you? How did you know?" Ning Xinyue inadvertently began to speak, then quickly covered her mouth, afraid of revealing her family background. "I guessed right after all. With a young one like you coming out to mix in the Jianghu, no wonder you were captured so easily. Hey, what exactly are you saying? Are you going to help me escape or not?" Ning Xinyue yelled, displeased with Su Jie's probing questions and only wanting him to help her escape. Let's talk about it later." Su Jie stretched lazily, recalled the 1,000-hand centipede into his sleeve, and turned toward the door. "Why aren't you keeping your word? I've already taught you a secret technique." Hey, you jerk!" No matter how Ning Xinyue shouted, Su Jie didn't stop his steps and quickly exited the room, firmly closing the door behind him. Scoring a secret technique for free. That feels great. Su Jie observed his slightly twisting shadow behind him, a satisfied smile forming on his lips. As for rescuing others, he had never made any promises. With such a vast fleet of slave trading ships, even if Su Jie had the inclination, he lacked the capability. He certainly didn't possess such selfless spirit. Exiting the cabin, Su Jie returned to his own room. His accommodations, like those of the other disciples, consisted of a cramped cabin, only slightly better than those sleeping in hammocks. At least he had a bed. Su Jie prepared to thoroughly study the mysterious shadow secret technique and quickly master it for use in battle. Days quickly passed. Life on the slave trading ship was monotonous and dull. Su Jie spent his time studying the mysterious shadow secret technique besides occasional inspections. Divide! In the cabin, Su Jie moved his hands. The shadow behind him suddenly stood upright, transitioning from a two-dimensional plane to a three-dimensional figure, the pitch-black shadow gaining luster, morphing into Su Jie's form. Controlled by Su Jie, the shadow agilely ran back and forth in the room, its movements indistinguishable from a real person's. It worked. Su Jie nodded in satisfaction. The shadow now under his control could basically be used in combat. Although Su Jie's talent was poor, he did not pursue complex variations. Having a substitute to take hits was enough to meet his expectations. As for controlling several shadows at the same time, Su Jie did not even consider such things. Having made progress in his cultivation, and as mealtime approached, Su Jie cleaned up and went up to the deck. On the deck, the crew had specially cast nets today, catching fresh fish from the river, which were then barbecued by the chef. Su Jie picked a grilled fish and savored the earthy-tasting flesh while admiring the Golden Sand River before him. Over several days, the Golden Sand River had reached its lower course, its flow becoming more turbulent with steep cliffs on both banks. Wild grass swayed in the wind, and flocks of water birds frolicked on the cliffs. It was now sunset, the river's surface shimmering with golden light. Even the clear sand at the river's bottom was tinted with a faint golden hue, which is also the origin of the name Golden Sand River. On the Golden Sand River, over 20 large ships were also covered by the sunset, painted in an enchanting golden color, resembling a golden dragon threading through the valley. We will be back within the territory of Ghost Ridge Palace in 5 days. Chen Yun, who was also dining on the deck, saw Su Jie coming over with his plate and shared the news she had learned. The last part of our journey, don't let down your guard. We are only safe once we return to the grounds of Ghost Ridge Palace. Su Jie, with a deep look in his eyes, mused that their journey had been smooth sailing, perhaps due to traveling by. Even though there were other ships on the Golden Sand River, nobody realized this fleet was entirely made up of slave trading ships carrying human slaves. As for the navy inspections by the Dili dynasty, they mostly just extended their hands for money. As long as the silver was sufficient, they would let them pass without checking. Conversely, if the bribe was not enough, even if you were conducting your business honestly, they would find trouble for you. Su Jie and Chen Yun were speaking when suddenly, a loud noise came from the upper decks. Bang! A figure crashed onto the deck, blood immediately pooling beneath her. This was a young female slave, her youthful face filled with fear. Due to the height, this human slave did not die instantly and writhed in pain on the deck, screaming. And on a window ledge above the deck, Su Yihu appeared, coldly watching the struggling human slave below. Another damaged human slave, completely useless. Chen Yun lowered her voice, perhaps as a woman herself. She found this quite intolerable. Ever since Su Yihu boarded the ship, he called upon a batch of human slaves every day, and from time to time, piercing screams could be heard coming from his room. Sometimes, when Su Jie was patrolling, he would bump into Su Yihu in a good mood, personally coming over to select human slaves. Su Jie saw firsthand the undisguised greed and bloodlust in the other's gaze as he looked at those imprisoned human slaves. If these human slaves were not the property being sold to Ghost Ridge Palace by Liyun Manor, he would have likely started slaughtering long ago. Where can you escape to? With a cold laugh, Su Yihu flicked his left hand. His arm skin cracking and swelling inch by inch, sprouting scales and exoskeleton. The palm splitting open into a gaping maw that resembled a several meters long red lizard. Then, a tongue attached to flames shot out from the mouth, whooshing as it wrapped around the struggling human slave on the ground. The surging flames lit the human slave on fire, turning them into a torch, and wafts of flesh odor spread, causing many disciples to feel physically ill. Human characters vary widely, and not every demon cultivator disciple savors bloody cultivation methods. After roasting the human slave, Su Yihu's left hand retracted the tongue, swallowing the person whole into the gaping maw in his palm. It was visible that after the killing, the skin on Su Yihu's left hand deepened in redness, turning darker and redder. Human worm refining technique. Su Jie knew exactly what cultivation technique this was. For Su Yihu at this stage, Practicing the human worm refining technique meant there wasn't much difference with a lifebound poisonous insect. Because he had already merged with his lifebound poisonous insect, nurturing the poisonous insect meant nurturing himself. The two had become one entity, capable of fully utilizing the advantages of both the insect and the human body. However, the downside was also apparent. Because the poisonous insect and the host were fused, it was constantly necessary to seek living humans for blood sacrifice and consumption. Should the supply of living human sacrifices decrease, an extremely severe backlash would occur, turning him into a monster that was neither human nor ghost, devoid of human reason. Of course, if the supply of living human sacrifices were continuous and even increased in quantity, then the cultivation speed of this technique and the strength increase would surpass expectations. At least in the initial stages, it is undeniably powerful. After finishing the cultivation, Su Yihu's arm returned to normal, gracefully pulling out a handkerchief to wipe off the traces of blood on his hand. His gaze swept across the deck, then turned toward the expansive river in the distance, his eyebrows slightly furrowed. What's going on? Can't anyone here steer a boat? Yet, on the river surface, a dozen or so twin-sailed fast boats were directly heading toward them. Although the river was wide, that fleet was precisely blocking the path of the Ghost Ridge Palace's fleet. It is known that turning ships, especially large ones, is not like turning carriages. They require a vast area and are very inconvenient. The two fleets were so close and moving in opposite directions that a slight mishap could easily lead to a collision. Signal with the flag. Tell them to quickly move aside and make way. Just as Su Yihu uttered these words, an astonishing scene unfolded. The sides of those dozen twin-sailed fast boats cracked open, revealing large oars that extended out, rowing uniformly, which rapidly increased the boat's speed, making them shoot across the river surface like arrows, inserting themselves next to each slave-trading ship, the two fleets connecting. Then, from the decks of these twin-sailed boats, from the cabins and behind the sails, figures rose high into the air like winged rock, swinging grappling hooks and with weapons in their mouths. They leapt toward the slave-trading ships. Disciples of Guan Chao Pavilion, heed my command. Follow me to slay demons and eradicate evil. Ghost Ridge Palace scoundrels. Let us from Dragon and Tiger sect meet you. Purple Mist sect brothers and sisters. Follow me. Rescue the citizens and annihilate these cruel and ruthless demon cultivators. Kill a demon cultivator. Reward 100 spirit stones. Kill, kill, kill. Wearing various uniforms, coming from Qingzhou Jiaxing Prefecture, numerous disciples from several righteous sects surged toward the slave-trading ships like wolves and tigers. Amidst the battle cries, the entire slave-trading ship fleet instantly turned into chaos. Su Jie was shocked. No wonder the journey back had been so calm. They were waiting to strike with force. Before one could speak, the Ghost Ridge Palace disciples, who were still feasting on the deck, were caught off guard and killed. 20 meters away from Su Jie's slave-trading ship was the attacking twin-sailed fast ship. On the opposing deck, 7 or 8 disciples clad in white sun-moon robes and wearing purple-gold crowns spat out a sword pill each, which transformed into sparkling cold 3-foot flying swords. In a swooshing sound, several disciples were slain on the spot, their bodies severed. They were disciples from the Golden Sword Sect, a sect skilled in controlling flying swords. There was also a group of disciples with blue facial paintings, who, while manipulating spells, stepped on the bursting waves of the Golden Sand River, advancing step by step toward the slave-trading ship. These were disciples of the Guan Chao Pavilion, practitioners of the Spirit Turtle Water Heart method, making the Golden Sand River their advantageous home ground. Besides these, there were Purple Mist sect disciples Su Jie knew well, dressed in purple mist cloud collar shirts and iron clothes and hats. Charging with them were hordes of body cultivators from the Dragon and Tiger sect, all above 2 meters tall, broad-shouldered, stout, powerfully built, and fighting barehanded. The most ferocious were the disciples from Guan Chao Pavilion who, by joining forces, churned up the Golden Sand River, creating a massive tsunami aiming to topple and sink the slave-trading ship, heedless of the large number of human slaves on board. Kill these hypocritical bastards. Su Yihu's face was ashen, With rage, he smashed the window with a palm and jumped out alone. In midair, a stream of lava flame burst forth, consuming several righteous disciples who couldn't dodge in time, screaming as they burned to charcoal. Thereafter, his hands swelled, transforming into grotesque and sturdy insect-like arms. He swung his arms, scattering lava everywhere, igniting the nearby river and forcing the Guan Chao Pavilion disciples to retreat. Seeing Sui Hu take action, the morale of the Ghost Ridge Palace disciples surged, and they summoned a large number of poisonous insects. Ghost-faced spiders, giant horned centipedes, mystic ice poison bees, spotted venomous snakes, and various other types of poisonous insects formed a sky-covering swarm that immediately charged forward. Although most of the outer disciples' poisonous insects were of very low grade, with only a few low-grade poisonous insects, the sheer number was overwhelming. The insects relied on numbers and toxicity. Under the swarm's attack, righteous disciples were bitten if they weren't careful, the toxins eroding their internal organs, making their movements stiff and slow. A few consecutive bites could immediately result in death from poisoning. Whoosh! Su Jie turned his head. A flying sword grazed past his cheek. The wind it brought disheveled his hair. In front of him, a Guan Chao Pavilion disciple stood on splashing waves, the river water forming a giant water palm that struck down towards Su Jie. Behind him, a tall, sturdy disciple from the Dragon and Tiger sect bellowed, charging towards Su Jie at high speed. Trouble! Su Jie leaped aside. The water giant palm smashed the deck, blasting into the inner part of the ship where human slaves were detained. The closely packed crowd had nowhere to dodge. Wherever the water giant palm passed, it left chaos. Numerous objects and bodies were smashed. Fresh blood turned the giant water palm bright red. The Guan Chao Pavilion disciple didn't hesitate, continuing to control the giant water palm in attacking Su Jie. Su Jie's brow furrowed, and flicking his fingers, the white-boned sky-slaying sword flew out with a howl. First, it chopped the giant water palm into two sections, pierced through layers of water defenses, and pierced the forehead of the Guan Chao Pavilion disciple. The flying sword did not stop there. Just as the Dragon and Tiger sect's body cultivator got close, the white-boned sky-slaying sword, returning at supersonic speed, slashed down from the air. The body cultivator just raised his head when a bloodline formed from his forehead to his groin. Then the bloodline cracked. His body split into two halves, with organs spilling out, as if his body, as strong as steel, was as soft as tofu in front of the white-boned sky-slaying sword. The previously returning flying sword attacked again. Su Jie remained unfazed, and the white-boned sky-slaying sword faced it head-on. Clash! In the sound of metal striking metal, the incoming flying sword was directly broken in half. Not far away, a Golden Sword sect disciple spat blood, having suffered a severe backlash. Su Jie's eyes were icy cold. This was a clash of camps that allowed no mercy. Slash! With supersonic speed, the white-boned sky-slaying sword splattered blood. Heads rolled on the ground. Senior Brother Zhang, you demon cultivator, give back my senior brother Zhang's life. Several body cultivators from the Dragon and Tiger sect roared furiously. Seizing the moment when the white-boned sky-slaying sword was away, they surrounded and attacked Su Jie. Su Jie did not dodge. From his waist, pale human hands burst through the skin, and after touching the ground, they rapidly crawled, then leaped onto a few body cultivators, covering them from head to toe. The terrifying force transmitted from the fingers tore their bodies apart, leaving a bloody mess on the ground. Great opportunity! And Purple Mist sect disciples' eyes brightened as dozens of silent, hidden steel needles shot at him at the speed of sound. Clang! Clang! Su Jie threw out a low-grade intermediate talisman, ensuring his own safety. He had obtained many talismans from Pei Haibing, though their grade was not high. They were not very effective in intense battles, but were quite useful in lesser conflicts. Afterward, Su Jie moved his neck and looked towards the Purple Mist sect disciple who had attempted the sneak attack. Seeing things go south, that person immediately hid below the deck. The color in the depths of Su Jie's pupils changed, and they dilated to a light purple. Subsequently, Two beams of purple light rays burst forth, instantly melting several layers of the deck and striking the hiding purple mist sect disciple. His flesh and blood body melted like a candle in the high heat, without even a chance to scream. A few righteous disciples tried to rush in to fight, but under the fierce might of the white-boned sky-slaying sword, they were either decapitated or their hearts pierced and they died. It could be said that, with its unstoppable sharpness, the white-boned sky-slaying sword was overwhelming against those below the 6th level of the Yunling realm. Swoosh! Seeing how fierce Su Jie was, the surrounding area quickly cleared out. A group of righteous sect disciples were frightened by Su Jie's killing, surrounding him but not daring to advance, instead instinctively stepping back. Seeing Su Jie's divine might, the Ghost Ridge Palace disciples were incredibly emboldened, rallying around Su Jie to resist the attacks from the righteous disciples. Demon Cultivator, let me meet you. A cold snort accompanied the sound of surging waves. An inner disciple at the 7th level of the Yunling realm approached walking on water from the Guanchao Pavilion. He displayed the strong fluctuations of his spiritual power without any restraint. Su Jie thought it was aimed at him, but the opponent targeted Sui Hu instead. Mainly because Sui Hu had been very conspicuous with his fully unleashed power and the inner disciple's robes. Where did this water-playing brat come from? Get down from there. Sui Hu was annoyed by the other's arrogance, and without another word, he breathed out intense flames, which looked terrifying. However, the actual effect was profoundly different. Water conquers fire among the 5 elements, which holds some truth. Several dragon-sucking water tornadoes began to spin, with water currents mixed with a myriad of sharp rocks rotating at high speeds. They not only extinguished the flames but also slammed Sui Hu back into the river, slicing his body to the point of bloody tatters, leaving him without a spot of intact skin. Soon after the fight began, the previously arrogant and imposing Sui Hu was turned into a battered tiger. Damn it, I'll kill you. Sui Hu roared as he leaped out of the water, his body completely transformed. He had grown over 5 meters tall, his cracked skin dripping with magma, and a triangular, bizarre head. A thick tail had grown, making him resemble a fiery red lizard standing on its hind legs, barely recognizable as human. Seeing this, the Guanchao Pavilion inner disciple was not intimidated. He held a bell magic artifact in his left hand and a long spear made of condensed water in his right, stepping on the waves to meet Sui Hu head-on. Meanwhile, the battle on the slave trading ship intensified, with severed limbs and blood staining every inch of the deck. Worse off than the sect disciples engaged in combat were the human slaves imprisoned below deck. Neither the Ghost Ridge Palace disciples nor the righteous sect spared them as they fought. During the combat, some human slaves were bitten to death by poisonous insects, others were severed in half by flying swords, or thrown into the roiling Golden Sand River, or grabbed by dragon and tiger sect disciples and used as weapons to be thrown around chaotically. One slave trading ship, due to the fierce firefight, was severely damaged and began to slowly sink into the Golden Sand River. Apart from the various sects disciples, the human slaves on the ship were dropping into the river like dumplings, either struggling desperately or unable to escape before being pulled to the river's depths by the sinking ship. Scum of Ghost Ridge Palace, daring to move freely outside your confines. It seems the lesson we taught you last time wasn't enough. At the same moment, a tremendous booming sound filled the sky. An extraordinary elder, standing with his hands behind his back on a cliff overlooking the river, watched coldly below as he slowly raised his hand. I am Jiang Yeni, the Supreme Elder of the Guanchao Pavilion. Today I am here to subdue the demon. Boom! In the center of the Golden Sand River, a colossal whirlpool slowly formed, and a water dragon, completely made of solidified water and about 70 to 80 meters long, soared out of the whirlpool, its tail striking and splitting a huge slave trading ship in half. The formidable cultivation of the secret realm, entering the fray, was completely a dimension-shifting assault. Secret realm. Su Jie's face turned dark. Foes from this realm were simply not something disciples could contend with. Usually, when disciples sparred, the elders wouldn't interfere. because an elder taking large-scale action against disciples would only prompt equivalent retaliation from the opposing sect. If both sides' elders were determined to assassinate ordinary disciples, it would lead to heavy casualties among the sect's disciples, a loss no sect could bear. Could be said that within Jia Shao Prefecture, secret realm elders are like nuclear weapons, not easily mobilized, merely an invisible deterrence. Even when elders engaged in combat, it was mostly limited to clashing among themselves. They wouldn't involve ordinary disciples on a large scale, unless it was a battle to exterminate a sect. But for the demon path, such scruples were non-existent. After all, the demon path was suppressed everywhere. Look at the Ghost Ridge Palace elders. They were holed up in the mountain gate, not daring to venture out easily, without the expectation of delivering an equivalent retaliation to deter the righteous sects. If it were a few hundred years ago, it might have been possible, but now the demon path is in decline, such things can only be dreamt about. Jiang Yin's massacre did not stop. As a secret realm elder, his arrival completely established the battle situation. The water dragon soared through the air, its body covered with iron-hard dragon scales that glittered with the luster of flowing water, its keen dragon eyes piercing, and its tail as sharp as an arrow, creating a powerful airstream that agitated the Golden Sand River, giving rise to waves and billows. Bang! A simple tail slap was enough to break a slave-trading ship in two. Under the dragon's claws, 2 more slave-trading ships were crushed into the Golden Sand River, water pouring in frantically. Raising its head, the dragon's roar was soul-shaking, terrifying to the point of splitting hearts and shattering gallbladders. Heavenly thunder aid me in expelling demons. Jiang Yin stood atop the head of the water dragon. On those majestic dragon horns, even more blinding thunder condensed, turning into lightning that struck around him. One after another, Ghost Ridge Palace disciples screamed. Those hit by the lightning were torn apart, completely powerless to resist. Mountain and River Seal, crush these petty villains. A mid-grade magical artifact was thrown out. This was a seal inscribed with the image of mountains and rivers, the surface of the seal emitting golden flames, releasing rays of golden light in mid-air. The air around it instantly became heavy, and the Ghost Ridge Palace disciples caught in the light felt as though bearing the weight of mountains on their back, as if an invisible hand was slowly squeezing their bodies, bones emitting sounds of unbearable strain, until eventually, their skeletons shattered and their internal organs were squeezed into a pulp. By the sect master's order, today I shall ensure you all dissipate into ash and smoke, returning a bright and orderly world to these lands. Bringing his hands together, in front of Jiang Yin a sudden tsunami rose, but in the blink of an eye, it was frozen, turning into an ice wall. Upon the ice wall, it was as if a paintbrush rapidly drew upon it. In between vigorous strokes and outlines, countless ice swords shattered the wall, separating out, and converged into a brilliant river of swords. Wherever the river of swords went, Ghost Ridge Palace disciples were pierced through the heart by thousands of swords. There was simply no way to block it. Such a display of power terrified the Ghost Ridge Palace disciples, turning them as pale as death, shaking like chaff, feeling like a disaster was imminent. Who knows how many disciples, driven by fear, chose to leap into the Golden Sand River, hoping to find a way out to escape. Forcing through was absolutely impossible now. The dignified Supreme Elder of Guanchao Pavilion actually bullying our junior members, truly shameless. Suddenly, a voice came from a slave-trading ship at the back end of the Golden Sand River. Su Jie recognized it. That seemed to be the voice of Jia Chongshuan. Is there still an expert present? Jiang Yin narrowed his eyes, looking at the slave-trading ship, and then sneered. A mere practitioner of the 9th level of the Yunling realm dares to bark so furiously. I can't defeat you, but I can't let you destroy all of Ghost Ridge Palace's property. As soon as his words fell, a palm-sized talisman was thrown out. Atop the talisman, the blood of demons etched complex and intertwined patterns, each like wriggling earthworms, twisted and knotted, obscure and difficult to understand, imbued with intense spiritual power radiance between the lines. Top-grade talisman. Jiang Yin's face changed dramatically. He hurriedly tried to retreat, But it was already too late. The talisman burned to ashes, and with a thunderous boom, a golden sun appeared in the sky. Upon closer inspection, it was not any sun but a massive alchemy furnace constructed of spiritual power, over 100 meters in size, engulfing Jiang Yeni, with raging golden flames rising from the bottom of the furnace, as though attempting to refine Jiang Yeni into an elixir. This talisman might not kill him, but while he's trapped, let's make our escape. The voice of Jia Chongshuan came from the slave-trading ship, relying on the talisman given by the sect master of Ghost Ridge Palace. They managed to make the terrifying man, Jiang Yeni, withdraw. However, the situation remained grim as Jiang Yeni had inflicted heavy losses on many of Ghost Ridge Palace's forces, and their disciples suffered heavily. Now, being attacked by disciples from various sects, they could no longer hold out and started to turn their ships around, fleeing at full speed. On the water, Sui Hu, looking utterly miserable, escaped back and shouted, "Set sail quickly. We need to leave this place." The sails were hoisted, and the disciples of Ghost Ridge Palace, under the threat of life and death, fought with all their might, attacking the disciples of the righteous sects that charged them from all sides. Blood, screams, severed limbs, scattered weapons. Bodies floated on the river's surface. Flying swords crisscrossed, magic clashed, poisonous insects swirled. The entire Golden Sand River had descended into chaos, the battle reaching its most brutal and feverish stage. Su Jie maneuvered the white-boned sky-slaying sword, and with every sword's hum, a life was lost beneath its edge. There were not many disciples of Ghost Ridge Palace still fighting on the deck, and aside from Sui Hu, Su Jie was the most outstanding one. Countless disciples of righteous sects wished to kill Su Jie, the roadblock, but all eventually became the dead souls under Su Jie's sword. Chan Yun closely followed Su Jie, holding a Mingshang bat in her arms, coordinating with Su Jie in combat. Under the resonance of the Mingshang bat's sound waves, those slightly weaker disciples suffered internal bleeding, broken meridians, and slowed movements, making it even harder to block the fatal strikes of the white-boned sky-slaying sword. Heads were beheaded and sent flying. The white-boned sky-slaying sword remained as pristine as ever, with blood pooling into a small stream beneath Su Jie's feet. Su Jie stepped up to the ship's side. His white-boned sky-slaying sword slashed swiftly, cutting off all the oars on both sides of the pursuing twin-sail speedboat and tearing the sails apart. Quickly, the speed of the twin-sail speedboat decreased sharply, and it could no longer keep up with the chase. "Well done." Sui Hu laughed heartily, spitting out a mouthful of fresh blood with this laughter. His injuries were very severe, inflicted by that Guanchao Pavilion inner disciple. "Ruining my plans." The Guanchao Pavilion disciple looked over coldly, stepping on the water, ready to make a move on Su Jie. Su Jie's fingers moved, and the white-boned sky-slaying sword turned into a silvery white bolt of lightning. Its sword chi was sharp, causing the inner disciple of Guanchao Pavilion to become wary and stop in his tracks. "Get lost back to where you came from." Sui Hu's cheeks bulged, and a mouthful of thick molten rock sprayed out, coordinating with the white-boned sky-slaying sword, igniting half the body of the follower, forcing him to dive into the river to escape, frantically looking for water to put out the fire. The white-boned sky-slaying sword made several thrusts in the water, and the murky river no longer offered any visibility to pinpoint its position. However, having driven him off, their main goal had been achieved. Now it was important to flee. Who knew when the Hidden Realm Elder would break free? About 15 minutes later, unimpeded, Su Jie's slave trading ship broke through the encirclement. Bodies were floating on the river surface, most of them were human slaves, with a portion being cultivators, belonging to both right and evil factions. The corpses were carried by the river downstream and hadn't sunk yet for quite a while. On the slave trading ship, some of the surviving disciples paid no mind to their wounds, hurriedly running to the gunwale to salvage the bodies, snatching valuable magic artifacts, talismans, and elixirs from them. Splash! Several figures jumped into the river, swimming towards the bodies in the distance. Many disciples had been impoverished for too long and couldn't restrain their greed, oblivious to the fact that they were still on the battlefield. "It's Mr. Gu." Chen Yun pointed at the surface of the water. The one swimming towards the bodies to salvage them was actually Gu Weonian. He and a few Ghost Ridge Palace disciples were competing for valuable objects on the corpses, and the appearance of a storage bag incited a frenzy among them. Barely escaped from a predicament, and with the battle still raging behind them, the disciples could not restrain their avarice. People die for wealth as birds die for food. It's always been so. Call him back. Seeking fortune at this time is tantamount to not wanting to live. Su Jie walked to the gunwale, and Chen Yun shouted loudly, "Brother Su, I'll search a few more bodies and then come back. Don't worry about me." Upon hearing the shout, Gu Weonian turned his head to see it was Su Jie, stiffened in his movements, hesitated for a while, but still unable to give up the wealth, swam towards the corpses again. "Foolish, get back here now." Su Jie had not finished speaking when below the surface of the river, currents surged, transforming into a massive beast's head which bit several Ghost Ridge Palace disciples who wandered out to rob valuables, including Gu Weonian, instantly staining the river red with blood. The inner disciple from Guanchao Pavilion who had competed with Su Yihu had been lurking underwater, originally planning to ambush Su Yihu. But since Su Yihu had kept hiding and was protected by other disciples, especially with Su Jie around, he dared not rashly charge in and chose to attack the weaker disciples instead. "Next time you won't be so lucky," the Guanchao Pavilion inner disciple threatened, then dived back into the river. No one dared to venture into the depths and fight with the disciples of Guanchao Pavilion. It was their turf. The disciples whose bodies were crushed struggled momentarily, then became silent. On the slave-trading ship, watching Gu Weonian's lifeless body on the river surface, Su Jie slowly sighed. What was the point? Without the strength, you shouldn't covet that wealth. It only led to a pointless death. Gu Weonian only had the cultivation level of the third level of Yunling realm. It was fortunate enough for him to have survived by hiding in the cabin. Yet he couldn't resist his greed and fell at the last hurdle. Chen Yun remained silent, accustomed to life and death. Her grief was fleeting. Too many had died in today's battle, with less than 30% of Ghost Ridge Palace disciples surviving. Aside from those they knew well, no one really cared about the passing of another life. Su Jie controlled the white-bone sky-slaying sword and salvaged Gu Weonian's body from the water. After all, he deserved a proper burial and not to be used as food for fish and shrimp. As Su Jie did this on the Golden Sand River, 7 or 8 slave trading ships each employed their own methods to speed up and break out of the encirclement. Another 10 or so were surrounded completely, already boarded by righteous disciples who slaughtered every Ghost Ridge Palace disciple, raising the flags of various sects on the mast. Catching up to them relentlessly, in their panic, the remaining slave trading ships disregarded formation, stretching out a considerable distance before either sneaking into tributaries or running aground, with their disciples disembarking and fleeing in terror. The slave trading ship under Su Jie's control was quick, its sails undamaged and to his surprise retained its propulsion, smoothly shaking off the pursuers from behind. Many hours later, nightfall descended. Disciples of the Ghost Ridge Palace gathered on the deck, treating injuries, counting losses, and repairing the ship, still in the busiest phase following the end of the battle. Originally, there were dozens of Ghost Ridge Palace disciples stationed on the slave trading ship, but now less than 10 were alive, and almost all of them were injured. On the other side of the deck, the bodies of the dead Ghost Ridge Palace disciples were piled up. There weren't many, as most of the bodies had fallen into the river. Su Jie helped Chen Yun clean up the wound. Compared to the last time when she was seriously injured and near death, this time at least, there were no severe injuries. Patting his knee and standing up, Su Jie said, "All right, after taking this elixir and resting for a few days, you'll be mostly recovered. If you can't bear the pain, take a few drunk numbing pills yourself. Drunk numbing pills are like anesthetics, able to numb bodily pain, but they interfere with body movement and seriously affect combat. I won't take that. It's just a bit of pain. I'm already very grateful that I could survive." Chen Yun swallowed the healing pill, her face easing quite a bit. As for the drunk numbing pill, she didn't need it yet. "You decide for yourself." Su Jie looked around and didn't see Su Yihu anywhere. "Where's Brother Su?" Su Jie stopped a disciple to ask about Su Yihu's whereabouts. "It seems he's gone to the lower cabins." The answer from the disciple furrowed Su Jie's brows slightly, as a bad premonition arose in his heart. As if to confirm Su Jie's suspicion, sudden cries and wails emanated from the lower cabins of the slave-trading ship. A few disciples scrambled up to the deck, and those who were slower were entangled by a tongue and dragged back into the darkness. "He's gone mad. Brother Su has gone mad. He's eating people, anyone he sees." The disciples who escaped back were terrified, their voices trembling. "He can't control it, huh?" Su Jie muttered to himself, took out the white-bone sky-slaying sword, and cut a big hole in the deck with his flying sword. Through the hole, one could see a ghastly scene in the lower deck. Su Yihu was crouching on the ground, having turned into a gigantic half-lizard creature about 7 or 8 meters long, with skin covered in fine scales and a thick tail that had sprouted. He was paying no heed to the cries and pleas of the human slaves, opening his bloody maw and crazily devouring them whole. Whether it was men or women, elderly or children, he swallowed them all. His belly was visibly bloated, and one could dimly see the outlines of human limbs struggling inside, immensely terrifying and chilling. Disturbed by the noise, Su Yihu slowly lifted his head, the flesh under his chin puffing up as he emitted a sharp, piercing laugh. "Ha ha! Are you trying to stop me? Then I'll kill you first. Dead men tell no tales." Amidst laughter, Su Yihu's mouth opened, and over a dozen split tongues shot out like lightning, dragging all the disciples toward him to be devoured. "Brother Su, spare me. I didn't see anything. Don't kill me. You monster. I won't let you off even as a ghost." No matter how the disciples pleaded for mercy, Su Yihu continued as he pleased, devouring them all. Clang! Amidst the resonating sound of a sword's cry, the tongue attacking Su Jie and Chen Yun was severed. Blood with a strong scent of sulfur gushed out, causing Su Yihu's face to twist with spite. The next moment, Su Yihu's massive body used all 4 limbs to clamber up through the hole, glaring menacingly at Su Jie, his eyes filled with brutal killing intent. "Do you not think this is too much, Brother Su?" Staring at the immense figure before him, half man, half lizard, Su Jie caressed the white-boned sky-slaying sword, his gaze turning cold. "He, an outer disciple like you wouldn't understand." Su Yihu squatted on the ground, his upper body covered in overlapping scales. He looked bloated. He had eaten too many people and had not yet digested them. It all comes down to wanting to practice the human worm refining technique, taking advantage of the attack by the righteous sect to claim that the entire slave-trading ship was destroyed and taking the opportunity to take all the human slaves on the ship as food to satisfy your cultivation. Su Jie said indifferently, having seen Su Yihu's greed for living humans before. If it weren't for today's incident, he wouldn't have dared to harbor such deviant thoughts. But now, with the slave-trading ship's fleet mostly lost, he counted his own slave-trading ship among the casualties, and by killing all witnesses, he could freely enjoy the human slaves aboard the entire ship without anyone suspecting him. Su Jie had once read news about a bank being robbed by bandits. The bank manager took the opportunity to exaggerate the loss amount and cover up his embezzlement, a similar principle. Su Yihu was somewhat surprised and sneered. "I'm impressed that you know. That makes it even more impossible to let you go. I was thinking of looking after you because of your connection with Senior Yu, but you're just too blind." Su Yihu shook his heavy body, stood up on his 2 hind legs, and cast a shadow over Su Jie. His mouth emitting a foul smell, he said, "Your strength is quite good, using the white-bone sky-slaying sword to perfection, but it's still not enough against me. If Pei Haibing from your branch were here, he might pose some threat to me, but unfortunately he died too soon. Now, let me show you the strength of an inner sect disciple." Roar! With a roar, Su Yihu bent his legs, tore through the air, and the powerful impact cracked the deck with each step. Qian Yun bit her lips tightly, holding the Mingshang bat in her hands, sending out resonance attacks, but being merely a low-grade poisonous insect, it clearly couldn't inflict any effective damage on Su Yihu, and she could only watch helplessly as the half-man, half-monster lunged toward her. Su Jie watched Su Yihu nearing, shadows stretching behind him, covering his entire body. Like stepping into an ink pad for printing. A new Su Jie emerged and darted off in another direction. The lunging Su Yihu paused for a moment, then smashed down with a palm, dispersing the shadowy illusion. Quite useful. Su Jie, having just learned to use the mysterious shadow secret technique, nodded his head in satisfaction at its effect. With the vast golden sand river here, where can you escape to? If you don't use your white-bone sky-slaying sword now, you'll soon have no chance. Su Yihu mocked and laughed heartily, not caring about Su Jie's tricks, confident he could handle any problem. Running away? You thought too much, and besides, I generally don't like using swords against big fellows. With a slight smile on his lips, Su Jie raised his right hand. Xiao Qian, come out and play with him. Hiss! His sleeve ripped apart, and the ferocious thousand-hand centipede burst out, its myriad pale corpse hands and insect eyes cold and ruthless, hurtling toward Su Yihu. What? A 3-refinement poisonous insect. Su Yihu's pupils dilated sharply, as if he had encountered an archenemy, and in sheer panic, he attempted to back away. The 10-meter-long thousand-hand centipede was far more formidable than Su Yihu, giving him no chance to dodge. At the moment of contact, the thousand-hand centipede used its unrivaled strength to overwhelm him. Its massive fangs clamped onto Su Yihu's neck, blood spurting like a fountain, exposing the windpipe and neck bone to the air, while pairs of pale corpse hands tightly coiled around Su Yihu's body. Su Jie, is this truly yours? Chen Yun was utterly shocked by the scene before her, the overturned battle power making her feel as if she were dreaming. Su Jie actually had a 3-refinement poisonous insect, something many inner sect disciples struggled to cultivate. Luck was on its side, allowing it to evolve 3 times. Su Jie smiled, while Chen Yun remained silent, knowing this wasn't just about luck. Evolution from a low-grade poisonous insect to a mid-grade one also far surpassed evolving to a low-grade 3-refining poisonous insect in terms of resource consumption. The latter was more difficult, and in terms of combat power, one low-grade 3-refining poisonous insect could easily overpower an ordinary mid-grade poisonous insect that hadn't evolved. But Su Jie said this. Chen Yun was sensible and did not continue to question him. On the deck, Su Yihu was being overwhelmed by the thousand-hand centipede. Not to mention he hadn't fully recovered from the injuries inflicted by inner disciples at Guanchao Pavilion during the previous battle. In addition, in terms of strength, defense, and speed, the thousand-hand centipede utterly dominated him. Once the fight started, pale corpse hands fiercely pressed in, crushing countless hard bones on his body. Su Yihu could only struggle continuously, as streams of scorching lava erupted from his mouth and skin, hoping to make the thousand-hand centipede release him and retreat in difficulty. The thousand-hand centipede turned a blind eye. This hard insect shell was extremely fire-resistant. Even if it couldn't stand the heat, it would split into smaller centipedes to heal itself. Boom! The thousand-hand centipede, entwined with Su Yihu, crashed into the upper structure of the ship. The teak hull, built to be sturdy, shattered upon contact. The mast was broken, and the fallen sail covered the 2 massive beings engaged in a frenzied battle, but it could not prevent them from tearing the upper part of the slave trading ship to shreds. Xiao Qian, take him down to the river. At Su Jie's command, the thousand-hand centipede decisively grabbed Su Yihu and plunged with him into the turbulent river waters. Gurgle, gurgle. Huge bubbles and waves surfaced. Nearby fish flipped belly up, cooked by the boiling river water. Giant shadows could be seen entangling under the water. The river roiled with massive waves, and large amounts of silt and sand muddied the water. Affected by the environment, the fiery lava fire was greatly suppressed by the river water, significantly reducing its power and posing no threat to the thousand-hand centipede as both entered into a true melee combat. Half a minute later, with bursts of dazzling purple light emanating from the riverbed, the turbulent golden sand river gradually calmed down, the thousand-hand centipede surfacing with Su Yihu in its grasp. By this time, Su Yihu was left with only his upper body. His torso below the chest had vanished, and the outcome was quicker than imagined. After throwing Su Yihu onto the deck, The thousand-hand centipede flicked its two antennae and buzzed at Su Jie as if to claim credit. "I'll reward you with a chicken leg later." Su Jie patted the thousand-hand centipede's head and walked over to Su Yihu. "It's my fault for not seeing through you earlier. You hid it so well." Su Yihu's voice was weak, his words full of unwillingness as most of his organs had fallen into the golden sand river, his life ticking down. "You're just too weak to make me reveal my true strength." Su Jie, smiling, reached out for the storage bag, then added, "Right, you are far weaker than Pei Haibing. At least he could spar with me and pose a threat, but you're completely useless." Su Yihu's eyes bulged, and although Su Jie spoke the truth, as an inner disciple, he had never seen an outer disciple dare to belittle him like this. With eyes bloodshot, Su Yihu stared intensely at Su Jie, his mouth opening and closing, wanting to curse angrily. But he couldn't catch his breath, and the last bit of light in his eyes dimmed, halting his breathing. "He's dead already. Inner disciples really can't handle much, can they?" Su Jie shook his head, took off the storage bag, and with a kick, sent the corpse into the river. Such scum didn't deserve a burial. Better to serve as a meal for the river fish. Tsk tisk, truly worthy of an inner disciple. Such wealth is indeed substantial. Su Jie was counting the spoils in the storage bag. A battle had added thousands of blood marrow crystals to his account. Indeed, murder and arson for a golden belt, this kind of windfall really comes easily. The prerequisite is to have enough strength, otherwise, if someone kills you instead, you become their spoils of war. Dead? Is Su Yihu really dead? Chen Yun's head was still spinning, unable to believe that an outer disciple had actually overturned and killed an inner disciple. If someone had told her this in the past, she would have thought they were out of their mind. But having witnessed Su Jie kill Su Yihu with her own eyes, Chen Yun had to believe this exaggerated outcome and secretly categorized Su Jie as a freak of nature. After all, being able to cultivate a poisonous insect that had undergone spirit refining 3 times, not many freakish inner disciples could manage that. Who made him want to kill me? I had no choice but to send him on his way first. Su Jie shrugged, raised his finger to his lips, and reminded, "This stays between you and me. Remember to keep it a secret." "I know, even if I die, I won't speak." Chen Yun nodded repeatedly. Su Jie had already saved her twice. Such a debt of gratitude could not be fully repaid. How could she possibly betray him? Su Jie was not worried about any leaks, aside from those human slaves, and the surviving Su Jie and Chen Yun. There were no other living Ghost Ridge Palace disciples or crew on the ship. Even if Chen Yun really decided to betray him without proof, accusing Su Jie, a disciple favored by Taoist Chiu, no one would believe such one-sided words. After clearing the spoils on the slave trading ship, Su Jie looked at the ship, which was a mess and badly damaged from the battle. This ship was basically on the verge of being scrapped. It was fortunate it hadn't sunk just from being sturdy. But Su Jie didn't have the capability to drive it back to Ghost Ridge Palace alone. It would sink halfway. Thinking it over, Su Jie let the thousand-handed centipede jump back into the water, pushing hard at the stern to beach the slave trading ship toward the shore. With the buoyancy of the water flow and a number of pale corpse hands paddling wooden paddles, this process was somewhat difficult, but ultimately it was barely accomplished. Crack! The ship's bottom deeply stuck into the river sand silt, and the riddled large ship finally swayed a few times before grounding ashore. "Chen Yun, go and bring out those human slaves and let them go home. Just make sure they don't see your face." Su Jie instructed Chen Yun, then turned and entered the 3rd level of the cabin, arriving in front of a door covered with frost. Breaking the layer of ice, Su Jie walked into the room with temperatures several tens of degrees below zero. "It's you, you scoundrel." Within the ice crystal, seeing Su Jie, Ning Xinyue's eyebrows furrowed in anger, and she stopped pretending to be asleep. "Haven't seen you for several days, you've slept quite soundly." Su Jie stepped up to the ice crystal, smiling as he spoke. "What are you planning to do now?" "Humph, whatever you're thinking. I won't be fooled again." Ning Xinyue looked on guard, still unable to forget how Su Jie had tricked her out of the mysterious shadow secret technique. I'm here to fulfill a promise and rescue you. Did you forget what we agreed on? Su Jie spoke very sincerely, seeming to have completely forgotten what he had done a few days before. Wait a minute. You said you're going to rescue me? The girl was a bit disheveled, having anticipated many things, but she hadn't expected that Su Jie was actually there to rescue her. No, you're too kind for no reason. There must be a conspiracy that I don't know about. Having been deceived once, Ning Xinyue had become much more cautious. Su Jie summoned the thousand-handed centipede to carry the ice crystal outside, and said, "Where do you think all these conspiracies come from? Don't think of people as too filthy. Aren't demon cultivators always scheming and plotting? Besides, you tricked me last time." Ning Xinyue wanted to scold Su Jie, but, held by the grotesque thousand-handed centipede and even through the solid ice crystal, her fair skin still crawled with goosebumps, and her small face turned slightly pale as she turned her head away, unable to look. After stepping out of the cabin, Ning Xinyue saw the heavily damaged slave trading ship and exclaimed in horror, "What happened here? I heard shouts and cries of fighting below. Were you attacked by bandits? Which bandit has the death wish to rob a demon cultivator?" Su Jie could hardly contain his laughter. The girl didn't think before she spoke. Ning Xinyue thought about it, and indeed, compared to demon cultivators, bandits were insignificant. It was like hoodlums running into a fully armed military force, specifically one that played by concentration camp rules. If provoked, a quick death would be hard to come by. I understand now. There must have been a righteous sect here to rescue us. Ning Xinyue's mind clicked, and she shouted in delight. "You're happy too soon. The rescue team was already repelled, and given your situation, being rescued may not necessarily be a good thing." Su Jie smirked. Those from the righteous sects were equally cruel, as seen by how they disregarded and let their magic affect the human slaves without concern for collateral damage. If Ning Xinyue fell into their hands, given the numerous cultivation techniques she held, her ending would not necessarily be good. Still, it's better than falling into the hands of demon cultivators, Ning Xinyue argued, biting her silver teeth. "Ah, you got that right." Su Jie chuckled. By then, Su Jie had reached the deck and looked down. The Golden Sand River mudflats were filled with human slaves released by Chen Yun, who one by one knelt down thunderously, creating a dense sea of heads continuously knocking the ground. "We commoners thank the noble lord for granting us a chance at life. Though we do not know your honored name, your grace will never be forgotten. Should we be fortunate enough to survive and return home, we swear to write of your deeds and worship at your shrine." The group of human slaves chanted thrice in unison. Mothers holding their children and trembling elders all knelt. Even if their foreheads bled, their faces were full of gratitude and joy, which were genuinely from the heart. Chen Yun, standing to the side and glancing at Su Jie, was unexpected that Su Jie would release all these human slaves. Logically, with heavy losses to the slave ship fleet, if Su Jie managed to bring back a large number of human slaves urgently needed by Ghost Ridge Palace, he would surely receive great commendation from the sect. Yet, Su Jie chose to grant the slaves their freedom instead. In the meanwhile, Ning Xinyue secretly opened her eyes. Then her eyes widened in shock at the absurd scene before her, throwing her into disarray. What did she see? A group of human slaves, who had been transported for sale, were thanking their demon cultivator overseers, kneeling and giving thanks profusely. Could he actually be a good person? Suddenly, Ning Xinyue entertained this ridiculous thought. Hurry and scatter. I can't guarantee that other demon cultivators won't come by here, and if they see you, you know the consequences, said Su Jie, waving his hand. Su Jie, along with Chen Yun and the thousand-handed centipede holding the ice crystal, left the slave ship and entered the dense woods. While walking, Su Jie glanced at the quiet girl inside the ice crystal, considering her his greatest gain from this journey. It remained to be seen what kind of cultivation technique could be obtained from her. In the dense forest, a bonfire crackled as it burned, several wild chickens, birds, and rabbits skewered beside it. Their skins roasted golden brown, the aromatic scent wafting through the air. Chen Yun sat in front of the bonfire, carefully turning the food to ensure even heating. Elsewhere, Su Jie stood in front of a person-high ice crystal and spoke. Miss Ning, now that you are safe, do you still plan to stay inside? Inside the ice crystal, Ning Xinyue looked around, a flicker of glee in her eyes. Then I'll come out. Crack, crack. The ice crystal developed cracks, and in the next second, it exploded violently. Just then, Ning Xinyue burst out in an instant, her body splitting into four, fleeing in all directions of southeast, southwest, northeast, and northwest. I've been waiting for this move. Su Jie clapped his hands, and from around the trees, one corpse hand after another swooped down from the treetops. 3 fake shadows were exposed, and Ning Xinyue's true body, seeing the pale corpse hand leaping towards her, turned alarmingly pale, and a white shield sprung up. That was the protection from the magic artifact clothing on her body. Indeed, if you want to catch me, you'll need to practice a few more years. Ning Xinyue turned back and flashed Su Jie a triumphant smile, stepping with the 7-star steps, her figure moving unpredictably, seemingly about to vanish from sight. However, while Ning Xinyue was running, suddenly her feet gave way. She staggered as if drunk, and with a tumbling sound, she fell to the ground. You poisoned me. How despicable. Hearing footsteps behind her, Ning Xinyue felt completely drained of strength, pointing at Su Jie with a grief-stricken face. It turned out the air was filled with a colorless and odorless poison. After all, lacking the experience of Jianghu, she did not shield her breath out of vigilance. With her fast breathing from running and the quick circulation of blood and qi, she had unknowingly been poisoned too deeply, unable to muster any strength. Su Jie, grinning, walked over to Ning Xinyue, grabbed her by the neck as one would pick up a kitten. You even said last time you were captured because you were poisoned, and as a demon cultivator, how could I not know a bit about using poison? I was just trying, but I didn't expect you to fall in the same place twice. That was unexpected. Ah, you rascal, so sinister. Let me go if you dare. I want to fight you one-on-one. Ning Xinyue struggled vigorously in Su Jie's grasp, but without any strength. She was completely like a fish on the chopping block, with no possibility of escape. Are you sure you want to challenge me one-on-one? Su Jie dragged Ning Xinyue back in front of the bonfire, leaning her against a tree trunk. Behind him, numerous corpse hands gathered around Su Jie. Seeing this scene, Ning Xinyue shrank her neck back. With these eerie skills, she felt like tying 3 of herself together might still not suffice to match the man before her. All right, it seems you've figured it out. Su Jie sat cross-legged in front of Ning Xinyue, pinching her chin, saying, Now let's keep your promise. I kindly saved you, so tell me about the cultivation technique you know. I won't tell. What if you kill me after finding out? Ning Xinyue turned her head away childishly, her gaze meeting directly with the roasted chicken in front of the bonfire. She couldn't help swallowing. Not telling? I'm very patient, you can just stay here slowly then. Su Jie's gaze shifted slightly. He turned and sat in front of the bonfire, picking up a golden brown, fragrant roast chicken and took a bite. Chen Yun, your cooking is really good. Su Jie gave a thumbs up, enjoying the taste of the roast chicken. It's all thanks to these seasonings you brought. I didn't even know there were so many kinds of seasonings in the world. Chen Yun, eating a rabbit leg, pointed at the bottles and jars on the ground, which were all brought by Su Jie. Even with seasonings, you still have to control the cooking time yourself, right? Delicious. Have some more. Gurgle. Suddenly, an untimely noise came. Su Jie and Chen Yun turned their heads at the same time, only to see Ning Xinyue tilting her head, pursing her lips, and pretending to look at the moon. Gurgle. The sound came again from Ning Xinyue's stomach. With a swoosh, Ning Xinyue's beautiful face turned red like a tomato, and even her fair neck had a flush of crimson. I completely forgot. You were sealed in the ice crystal for so many days without any food. You must be starving, right? Want to join us for a bite? Su Jie tore off a chicken leg and dangled it in front of Ning Xinyue, tempting her. Come on. Don't be shy. Open wide. Smelling the delicious aroma of the chicken, Ning Xinyue imperceptibly nodded her head, opened her mouth, and was about to bite into the chicken leg. But as Su Jie lifted the chicken leg, Ning Xinyue also stretched her neck, only for Su Jie to turn his hand and put the chicken leg into his own mouth. Delicious. This chicken is smooth and tender, absolutely scrumptious. You're bullying me. Tears swirled in her eyes. Ning Xinyue was about to cry out of frustration caused by Su Jie. Carrying a roast chicken, Su Jie raised an eyebrow. So, do you want to speak now? Ning Xinyue puffed her cheeks but didn't say a word. Is that so? Then Chun Yun, let's eat all this food alone. No need to save any for her. Su Jie chuckled softly, pretending to take back the roast chicken. But Ning Xinyue could no longer hold back. Ew! With her cherry lips parted, Ning Xinyue bit into the roast chicken. Su Jie pulled back, pinching Ning Xinyue's tender little face, trying to make her let go. Ning Xinyue bit down hard, possessing a spirit of I'd rather die than let go. Finally, a large piece of chicken was bitten off, and she swallowed it down, feeling thoroughly satisfied yet making her stomach crave more food. Just say it. And this whole roast chicken is yours, oh. Su Jie squatted in front of Ning Xinyue, looking at the bite-marked roast chicken, his voice like that of a devil tempting someone into sin. Ning Xinyue's stomach kept making noises, smelling the savory roast chicken, and eventually she couldn't resist anymore. Most of my cultivation techniques have prohibitions. They cannot be spoken or written down by others. I can only teach those who can write on their own. Su Jie closely examined Ning Xinyue's face. She was probably not lying. Pen and paper, write it out now. Retrieving pen and paper from the storage bag, Su Jie placed them in front of Ning Xinyue. As soon as you finish writing, you can eat, but you better be quick, or we might consume all the food first. Save some for me. Ning Xinyue was startled and began to write rapidly on the paper. Su Jie intentionally stood beside her, eating and making smacking sounds, which made Ning Xinyue feel both infuriated and anxious. Infuriated by Su Jie's indecency and anxious for fear the food would be all gone. Under the lure of food, Ning Xinyue found for the first time that her writing speed could be so fast. In just half an hour, 4 new cultivation techniques were written out. I've finished writing. Quickly give me the roast chicken. Ning Xinyue put down the pen and, with puffed cheeks, stretched out her hand towards Su Jie. Here, eat up. Su Jie handed over the roast chicken and pointed to the fireside roast chicken and rabbit. Those are all yours now. Ning Xinyue took the roast chicken and took a bite, the juice and delicious meat filling her mouth. Her crescent moon-shaped eyes squinted happily as she indulged in the feast contentedly. Su Jie picked up the 4 cultivation techniques written by Ning Xinyue, and using the light from the campfire, he read the text on them. 7 star steps. White crane Zen Dao. 5 elements demon suppressing handprint. Soul summoning banner secret manual. There were 4 cultivation techniques in total, and Su Jie studied them in detail. The 7 star steps must have been the strange stepping pattern Ning Xinyue used to escape just now. After cultivating it, one could step on the heavenly gang 7 stars, activating corresponding major acupoints in the body, and at a minimum double one's speed. Those proficient in this method could increase their speed even more. The White Crane Zen Dao, on the other hand, was a magic skill for absorbing spiritual energy. Just from reading the text, Su Jie could feel the complexity of this cultivation technique, and its efficiency in cultivation was much higher than that of the 100 Poison Refining Gu scripture, suitable for daily cultivation to enhance one's absorption of spiritual energy. The 5 elements demon suppressing handprint was purely an offensive magic skill, and its principle wasn't too complicated. It was just that Su Jie didn't really like the name. After repeatedly observing this 5 elements demon suppressing handprint, Su Jie tried to use it. The next moment, Su Jie's right palm struck out. A handprint formed from condensed spiritual power suddenly took shape, measuring a full 10 feet in size, smashing a few towering ancient trees before dissipating into the air. Lacking the application of the 5 elements, this is merely a handprint constructed from pure spiritual power, and its power is much less. Ning Xinyue flipped a beautiful eye roll and ridiculed Su Jie's poor aptitude. Su Jie didn't retaliate. The simplicity of the 5 elements demon-suppressing handprint was relative, and it wasn't possible to master it in one go. Su Jie wasn't discouraged. Finally, Su Jie picked up the cultivation technique that documented the Soul Summoning Banner manual. Upon studying it, Su Jie realized that this wasn't a cultivation technique, but rather a refining device scripture describing how to craft the Soul Summoning Banner magic artifact. Start with the heavy, then move to the Soul Cloth, and diverge to the Soul Banner. The artifact refining technique for the Soul Banner turned out to be simpler than expected, and he also had the necessary crafting materials in his storage bag. According to this Soul Summoning Banner manual, the Soul Summoning Banner could absorb living souls and gradually nurture them into Een souls. The Soul Summoning Banner magic artifact had no specific grade. It entirely depended on the quantity of Een souls it contained. With the current limit imposed by his own spiritual power, the more Een souls it contained, the stronger the power of the Soul Summoning Banner would be. Hey, where did you get this Soul Summoning Banner manual? This doesn't seem like a cultivation technique you should be learning, Su Jie said as he turned his gaze towards Ning Xinyue, wondering where this young girl had learned it from, since the Soul Summoning Banner was clearly something only demon cultivators would use. Ning Xinyue wiped her oily little mouth, saying, I got it in Jingzhou from a demon cultivation sect known as the Heavenly Soul Sect. You wouldn't believe it, but their sect had a Soul Summoning Banner for nearly every member, and they liked to slaughter the common people to nourish ghosts and play with souls. Because they were so cruel and unprincipled, they were jointly attacked by the righteous sects of Jingzhou, and they should have been broken down by now. You exchanged for it? Just a young girl like you daring to deal with demon cultivators. Shouldn't you have been captured by the Heavenly Soul Sect for soul extraction? Su Jie was quite skeptical, thinking that it was already lucky Ning Xinyue hadn't been captured, let alone managing a deal with the demon cultivators. At his words, Ning Xinyue puffed her cheeks, angrily said, My sister was there at the time. They didn't dare to touch me. You have a sister too. Of course, my sister is very powerful. She could crush you with a single finger. If you know what's good for you, let me leave immediately. Ning Xinyue threatened, her confidence overflowing when she mentioned her sister. That's enough. Just eat your food for now, he said. Su Jie ignored Ning Xinyue and began to take out various materials for making the Soul Summoning Banner from the storage bag. Divine Gold Liquid, Dragon Bone Pine Bamboo, Silver Silk Grass, Empty Spirit Illusion Jade Powder. Su Jie took out the materials one by one and processed them in sequence through grinding, weaving, applying, and other steps. Since the Soul Summoning Banner is an item that every disciple of the Demon Cultivation Sect possesses, it indicates that its production is relatively simple, and the cost is not that high. Otherwise, a Demon Cultivation Sect wouldn't have the resources or the number of artifact refiners necessary. Su Jie had never studied artifact refining, yet the process of making the Soul Summoning Banner was overly simplified. Any cultivator could easily grasp it. More than an hour later, after failing twice, Su Jie successfully made the rudimentary Soul Summoning Banner on his third attempt, which was worth a dozen blood marrow crystals. A small white banner appeared in Su Jie's hand, and its body was blank as paper, looking utterly ordinary without any trace of the quality a magic artifact should have. Su Jie bit his fingertip and drew on the Soul Summoning Banner with his blood, sketching the image of a Een soul. It was a blurry humanoid silhouette, since it was drawn with blood. It also established that the Een soul inside the Soul Summoning Banner would obey Su Jie's commands. Is this really a magic artifact? Chun Yun curiously watched Su Jie's actions. The magic artifacts she had seen before, even the low-grade basic ones, would radiate a spirit charm, clearly distinguishing them from ordinary objects. Ning Xinyue, having finished eating and drinking, replied, There is no Een soul in the Soul Summoning Banner yet. So of course, it's different. I've seen other people's Soul Summoning Banners. With a single wave, souls shriek and thousands of ghosts emerge. A terrifying sight indeed. Su Jie sat down cross-legged, planted the Soul Summoning Banner into the ground, and then began to chant the Soul Summoning spell. As the spell took effect, A cold breeze slowly swept through, and several invisible light points floated in from the air within a few hundred meters radius. These were souls, also known as spirits, which could only be seen with spiritual energy enhancement, but not visible to the ordinary eye. Su Jie stepped back and watched as these light points entered the soul-summoning banner. The Yin soul image that Su Jie had drawn with his blood on the soul-summoning banner gained a light black layer on its face, as if stained with ink, so small and slight that it was almost imperceptible. Where did these souls come from? Su Jie himself was surprised. He had only been trying it out, yet he indeed summoned some souls. Chen Yun suddenly stood up and ran towards the direction from which a light point had come, soon returning with a struggling fox in her left hand and a rabbit in her right. When I got there, the fox had just caught the rabbit and had killed it. So, you're saying one of those souls was the rabbit's? Su Jie became interested, having initially thought that only humans could provide souls. He hadn't expected animals could as well. Of course, it's not just humans who have souls. Animals have them too. Ning Xinyue also curiously watched and then commented. To verify Ning Xinyue's statement, Su Jie captured various animals and insects and experimented with them. Indeed, the souls that the soul-summoning banner could absorb happened to be from some animals. Some small reptiles and insects, however, their souls could not be absorbed by the soul-summoning banner. It wasn't that these insects lacked souls, but their souls were too small and weak to be detected by the soul-summoning banner and quickly vanished into the environment. This is akin to fishing. The soul-summoning banner acts like a net filtering souls in the air, capable of catching certain fish and shrimp but unable to capture the microorganisms in the water. In this sense, the souls of these small insects are like microorganisms, elusive to the soul-summoning banner. For the experiment, animals within a few hundred meters had suffered a calamitous fate. Near the bonfire, the carcasses of animals mercilessly slaughtered were piled into a small hillock, and the soul-summoning banner, having absorbed these souls, finally underwent some changes. The human figure drawn by Su Jie with fresh blood had its face invaded by blackness, its silhouette as dark as ink. Under the bonfire and the night sky, the figure seemed to be slowly moving, its eerie form undergoing subtle transformations. The gloomy face of the figure, with its especially slender eyes and a twisted body, the skin on its face contorted as if trying to squeeze out of the soul-summoning banner. If one stared for too long, one could feel the chilling aura emanating from the soul-summoning banner, accompanied by malice, as if the Yin soul on the banner was eyeing the living creatures of the outside world. Su Jie felt nothing much, but Chen Yun and Ning Xinyue clearly felt a cold shiver down their backs. Tui, filthy thing. Ning Xinyue huffed lightly, feeling that this soul-summoning banner was very ominous. Glancing sideways, Su Jie said, "If you don't like it, why did you agree to the trade in the first place?" "I was thinking, if I had the soul-summoning banner, I'd have free servants to help with the work. How great would that be?" Ning Xinyue spoke with conviction. Then with a look of disgust added, "After the trade, I realized how evil this thing is, and since Yin souls can't affect the physical realm, it's all show and no use. I don't fancy it one bit." Chen Yun pointed at the Yin soul on the soul-summoning banner and asked, "Can it be summoned to fight now?" Shaking his head, Su Jie answered, "Not yet. There aren't enough souls, and the Yin soul has not truly taken form." Chen Yun looked at the various animal carcasses slaughtered nearby and said, "It seems that the souls provided by ordinary animals are too few in number. Even if we hunted the animals of several mountains, it wouldn't condense much Yin soul. The soul-summoning banner can become the signature magic artifact of the Heavenly Soul Sect, but it should not be used this way. The efficiency is too poor. It is most likely." Chen Yun did not finish her sentence, but Su Jie knew what she wanted to say. To quickly refine the soul-summoning banner, most likely human souls are needed. Su Jie spoke slowly, well aware of the nature of demon cultivators. Even without experimentation, Su Jie knew that as intelligent beings, humans could provide a far greater quantity of souls than ordinary animals could. And earlier, Ning Xinyue had also mentioned that the Heavenly Soul Sect loved to kill and extract souls, which was surely not without reason. It was most likely for refining the soul-summoning banner and cultivating Maureen souls, probably going too far in the end, provoking an assault from the various righteous sects. However, that was for ordinary demon cultivators, Su Jie thought as he looked at the animal carcasses. Since ordinary animals also had some effect, he had plenty of methods to refine the soul-summoning banner. Packing up the soul-summoning banner, Su Jie's gaze turned towards Ning Xinyue. What? Ning Xinyue became alert. Have you eaten your fill? Yes, I have. Since you're full, why are you still here? Why not leave? Su Jie pointed towards the dense forest and tossed a map over to her. Ning Xinyue had already provided a few cultivation techniques and the soul-summoning banner. Su Jie guessed that it was unlikely to squeeze much more out of her, since she had no further value to exploit and killing her was not an option. This young lady's background was mysterious, and who knew how extensive it could be. Su Jie did not want to bring major trouble upon himself. If she could not be killed, then he might as well let her leave on her own. After all, today's gains were already substantial. Su Jie was not overly greedy, and the fate of Gu Weonian was still fresh in his mind. Hearing Su Jie speak like this, Ning Xinyue was visibly shocked and asked incredulously, "What did you just say? You're letting me go? Take your chance while I haven't changed my mind." Su Jie sneered menacingly and threatened, "I know that the vestment robe you wear will conjure ice crystals automatically when your life is in peril, allowing you to safely hide within. But what if I were to dig a hole and bury you deep underground, or find a volcanic vent to throw you into? How would you deal with that? We demon cultivators stop at nothing and are capable of anything." Ning Xinyue shivered and suddenly leaped up, her body now free of the paralytic toxin and regained motion. "You filthy demon cultivator, I've committed you to memory, and you better not fall into my hands, or I swear I'll make you pay for this in the future," she vowed. Turning her head back, Ning Xinyue shook her little fist at Su Jie and, without looking back, snatched the map and fled deep into the dense forest. Is it really fine to let her go like this? What if she comes back for revenge? Chen Yun was somewhat worried. She had discerned that Ning Xinyue's origins were undoubtedly significant and feared that Su Jie might not be able to handle it. "What else can we do? Kill her or keep her imprisoned by our side forever? Either of those would only bring about our own demise," Su Jie replied, shaking his head with a laugh. "Besides, you've seen her nature. She's essentially good-hearted, as innocent as a blank slate. After all, I did save her. She couldn't possibly repay kindness with enmity." Chen Yun pondered this and decided to let it be. "Let's pack up. We should also make our exit," Su Jie said while extinguishing the campfire. Despite saying he wasn't worried, he was actually a bit afraid that Ning Xinyue, the young girl, might lead people to them. It would be a huge problem if a big shot from the secret realm showed up. Better safe than sorry, they both agreed to withdraw first. As Chen Yun packed up, she asked, "Are we heading back to Ghost Ridge Palace?" "No, let's find a city to settle down in first. Ghost Ridge Palace just had a bunch of human slaves seized by the righteous sect. We'll see what impact that has first," Su Jie said slowly. He was worried that Ghost Ridge Palace might blame him and the fellow disciples assigned to the escort. Su Jie planned to improve his strength before returning to Ghost Ridge Palace. Chen Yun had no objections and followed Su Jie as they rapidly left the thicket under the cover of night. Jianing City. Su Jie and Chen Yun, having disguised themselves, arrived here. Jianing City was just an ordinary city, hardly noteworthy within Jiaxiao Prefecture. Due to this year's famine in Jingzhou, coupled with the decline of the Deli dynasty after more than 500 years, signs of the dynasty's final days became evident. Corruption was rampant among officials, who imposed excessive taxes on the common people, and land consolidation had become a severe issue. As soon as they entered the city, Su Jie saw the city streets crowded with refugees who had lost their homes. Some were victims of Jingzhou's drought who had fled here after their crops failed, while others were landless poor who had come to the city seeking a livelihood. Chen Yun suddenly gasped, lowering her voice. Su Jie looked in the indicated direction and saw several wanted posters not far from the city gate entrance. Among them was Su Jie's own face. While not very accurate, the general likeness was discernible. Many citizens gathered around, murmuring among themselves. On these posters, Su Jie also recognized a few familiar faces, including Yu Wenxian and Su Yihu, mostly images of inner disciples of Ghost Ridge Palace. Notice to all, the following 12 individuals are the remaining scourges from the battle at Golden Sand River, regarded as the most dangerous and brutal among the Ghost Ridge Palace disciples. Should any traces of them be found, report immediately to the government. A verified sighting will be rewarded with 1,000 taels of silver. 2 constables were announcing loudly, recounting the united strike by the righteous sects at the Battle of Golden Sand River, along with Ghost Ridge Palace's heavy losses and details concerning the wanted. Let's go. We'll find a place to stay, then take our time to gather information, Su Jie said, lowering his bamboo hat further over his head. It seemed that making himself too conspicuous on the slave trading ship and killing too many righteous disciples had landed him on the wanted list. The two wandered around the city and eventually purchased a residential property where they settled in peacefully. Before long, Su Jie took the pretext of entering a cultivation retreat, but, in fact, he used the ancient mirror to return to Blue Star. Blue Star, Chan Country, East Chin State, Monday City. In the newly innovated heart of this city, a new skyscraper was rapidly rising, as workers busied themselves to speed up construction. It was the newly built headquarters of Jekka Company, more than 70 stories tall, employing a construction company from Hua Country, with still some time to go before completion. Not far away, a 13-story building served as the current office space for Jekka Company. Entering the CEO's office on the top floor, Su Jie pushed open the door. Behind the desk, an attractive woman dressed in a figure-hugging skirt with her legs sheathed in black stockings looked up at the sound.
Su Ye.
Lu Yingying stood up at once, her enchanting eyes filled with surprise. Did you miss me? As Su Jie entered the office, before he could exchange pleasantries, she had already kissed him. Long after their lips parted, Lu Yingying pounded softly on Su Jie's chest, her voice tinged with complaint. Why were you gone so long this time? Are you even concerned about the company anymore? I've been busy. Seated on the boss's chair, Su Jie stroked Lu Yingying's hair in his arms and asked, How has Jekka Company been developing during this period? Following your instructions, we didn't expand blindly. We just solidified our base in the Monday region. Our insect breeding business has now reached each household. Jekka Company has over 6,000 employees, and more than 80,000 farming households have signed cooperation agreements with us. Just this, and other places are still mocking our company in the news. Lu Yingying's eyes narrowed gently, full of contentment, as she recited the company's situation with ease. That's right, with you gone all these days, things inside the city became a bit unstable. Lu Yingying seemed hesitant, as if there was something more she wanted to say. Su Jie paused his stroking hand and said indifferently, Oh, some outsiders causing trouble? No, it's our own people. Some officials have started to reach out for bribes again, including the moths within our company. I've dealt with them, but it wasn't very effective. How did you deal with them? I've suspended them, dismissed some from their posts, and seen others jailed. But there are still many who can't resist reaching out. Moreover, some officials have significant authority. With you gone, and the officials protecting each other, it was difficult for me to make decisions directly. Su Jie's expression grew colder, and he shook his head. You have been too lenient. Have you forgotten how we started? We have control of the violence machine. Those who don't listen should go join Lu Wenbo. Ah, you mean to utilize the military to clean house? Lu Yingying's mouth fell open in shock, dumbfounded by Su Jie's words. She had never considered using the military to deal with a group of corrupt officials. Such a tactic was unheard of in Hua Country. We've just established our foothold in the Monday region. How could others accept us so easily, especially after we dealt with the officials who had deep ties with Lu Wenbo, creating a power vacuum? The temporary officials who were promoted are of mixed quality. When faced with pests, we need to be ruthless. Su Jie's voice was calm. Lu Yingying's methods were just too gentle. While being gentle isn't a flaw, it's not suitable for this place. This was Chan Country, and Su Jie was an outsider. Being too gentle only made others think he was weak and could be bullied, leading them to push even further. On the contrary, instilling fear in the enemy was the fastest way to establish a foothold in a foreign land. Knowing Lu Yingying, who had lived in peaceful times, might find this hard to accept, Su Jie continued, "I'll handle this matter, you don't need to worry about it. Tell me about the company back home." Tianyuan Home back home is also developing smoothly. Our high-end furniture, relying on raw materials, has completely made a name for itself domestically. Without the steady cash flow from Tianyuan Home, our rapid development would have been impossible. How much cash is left in the account? Su Jie nodded in satisfaction and continued to inquire. 2.9 billion Hua Yuan, are you going to use it? Get it ready, we're acquiring a few breeding farms. Don't we already have a lot of breeding farms? Hearing this order, Lu Yingying subconsciously thought it was referring to insect breeding farms. Not the insect breeding farms, but livestock breeding ones, the large-scale ones that include an assembly line for slaughter operations. Su Jie gave a mysterious smile, and though Lu Yingying was puzzled, Su Jie's orders were the highest command. She didn't ask any further and immediately went out to make arrangements. Night. In Mande City, a deluxe villa. Even in the poorest places there are rich people, and Mande City was no exception. Inside the villa, a group of officials and businessmen were holding a party. Since Jekka Company took over the supreme power in Mande region, they eradicated the extensive industries of the Mande United Army. But capital never disappears, nor can it be eradicated. Any business void would be swiftly refilled. Especially now that Jekka Company was heavily involved in infrastructure projects and the insect breeding industry was booming, businessmen could smell the money and naturally returned. And where there were businessmen, collusion between officials and businessmen was an inevitable affair. As the de facto controller of Mande region, it was the interests of Jekka Company being sold out. What was being destroyed was also Jekka Company's reputation, because everyone knew whom these officials were working for. Mayor, let me toast to you. Mayor, about the last time the Pudong Bridge collapsed, it really wasn't our construction fault. I hope you can help us out a bit more. Mayor, this is the son of the head of the Electric Power Bureau, Pasha, just back from studying abroad. He's just opened a construction company, and I heard there's a big government project coming up, if you ask me. Mande City's Deputy Mayor Mandarin held a wine glass as one businessman after another came up to him with flattery and ingratiation. Absolutely, as long as everyone works with one heart and builds Mande region well, there will certainly be no shortage of opportunities for prosperity for you all. Mandarin was in high spirits. He hadn't originally been the deputy mayor but had risen quickly after picking sides early in the last demise of the Mande United Army, and as a result, he soared to the deputy mayor role, also taking the real position of director of the Land Planning Bureau. Mayor Ma, I've heard about your promotion. Having just returned from abroad, I didn't bring much, so consider this box of cigars my meet and greet gift. Pasha handed over a box, personally delivering it into Mandarin's hands. Who brought cigars? You know. As Mandarin took the cigar box, he felt the weight was off. When he opened it, beneath the cigars there were gold bars. Their rich golden gleam dazzled the eye. Pasha smiled and said, "Just a small token of appreciation. Mayor Ma, please don't refuse it. You'll be the death of me. I was about to quit smoking, but seeing your sincerity, I'll have to smoke a few more sticks, just a few, and you all have to bear witness." Mandarin's face bloomed into a chrysanthemum-like smile as he passed the cigar box to his secretary. The businessmen nearby all very much got the hint, and they raised their glasses, indicating they would bear witness. Mayor Ma, I heard that Jekka Company is planning to construct a new road from Mande City to Qinghua City. Can you pull some strings at Jekka Company? My company wants to take on the construction. Seeing Mayor Ma accept the gift, a smile spread across Pasha's face, and he found the right moment to make his request. After all, Jekka Company is just a company. It's our government that controls the land. You did the right thing coming to me for this matter. With a feigned casual tone, Mayor Ma explained that he was in charge of the Land Planning Bureau and was acquainted with some people inside JECA. As long as the bribes were in place, there was a good chance it could work out. He was just worried Lu Yingying would block it, as Pasha's newly established construction company had no credentials whatsoever. Calling the roads they built substandard would be an overstatement. With Mayor Ma in Monday City, there's nothing that can't be done. Mr. Pa, you've just returned from abroad and might not know. But our Mayor Ma in Monday City, he's absolutely omnipotent. A group of businessmen echoed in agreement, expressing their respect for Mayor Ma. In the midst of this laughter and chatter, several glaring beams of light suddenly shot through the glass windows, dazzling many of the guests. What's going on? Who's messing around with the searchlights? Mayor Ma was a bit annoyed, then saw his own driver, along with a group of security guards, tumble and scramble into the room. What happened? Why are you all running? Mayor Ma's face darkened. He felt it was inauspicious for this pleasant banquet party to be thrown into such chaos. Ma! Mayor, a lot of military vehicles have arrived outside. It's JECA security. The mayor's driver was panic-stricken. As soon as these words came out, the entire villa fell silent. Mayor Ma shuddered, a hint of fear in his eyes, and hurriedly rushed to the villa's window to look down. The roar of engines filled the air as an armored vehicle led a convoy of military vehicles painted in camouflage. Soldiers, branded with the words JECA Security, wearing bulletproof vests and helmets, and armed with guns, jumped down and quickly surrounded the villa. JECA Security conducting an operation to arrest criminals. Everyone, put your hands on your head and squat down. Do it now. A fierce group of JECA Security personnel kicked open the doors of the villa, their gleaming gun barrels pointed at everyone. What are you trying to do? What are you trying to do? I am Monday City's Deputy Mayor Ma Mandarin. You're barging into a private residence without any propriety. Mayor Ma tried to maintain his dignity, attempting to use his official position to intimidate them. With a list in his hand, Miaolun looked at the photos, then up at Mayor Ma, and sneered. Mayor Ma Mandarin, right? You're the #1 target. Take him down. 2 JECA security operatives, fierce as wolves, charged forward and pinned Mayor Ma to the ground. On what grounds are you arresting me? What evidence do you have to arrest me? I am the deputy mayor. The deputy mayor. Do you understand? I'll file a complaint against you to JECA Company. Mayor Ma's face turned red with anger, and he spat out a frenzied protest at Miaolun, attempting to resist arrest. We're not the police. We don't need evidence to arrest someone, just a list. Unfortunately for you, your name is right on it. Miaolun struck Mayor Ma in the stomach with the butt of his gun, instantly silencing his defiance. Proceed with the arrests according to the list. Those who resist are authorized to be shot on sight. Miaolun's icy gaze swept over the others present, his sharp look making them feel the threat at their backs. One by one, they crouched down with their heads in their hands, like quails, watching as officials and businessmen were dragged away. They just prayed that they wouldn't be next, and no one dared say another word. Soon, a dozen officials and businessmen had been dragged out of the villa. Outside the villa, Su Jie leaned against an armored vehicle. As in sanction, the mayor of Monday City shamefacedly lowered his head, looking like a schoolboy who had done something wrong. Mr. Su, I failed to manage things well and let you down. And Sanction said hoarsely. He had always been cautious since being promoted to mayor by Su Jie, but he couldn't withstand the corruption flourishing among his subordinates. His lack of authority as the newly appointed mayor meant that the corruption below him grew even more rampant. You definitely made a mistake in not being decisive enough. If you had taken action sooner, I wouldn't have had to deploy JECA security. Su Jie watched as one official after another was arrested, and he spoke without any courtesy. Mr. Su, you're right. Perhaps I'm not suited to sit in high positions. With a bitter face, and Sanction admitted his shortcomings. Although he was just a puppet, the police did listen to him, but he lacked the decisiveness to cut off the rot clinging to the great tree of Monday City. If it weren't for the fact that you didn't collude with them this time, do you think you would still be standing here talking to me? Su Jie glanced over, scaring Sangshin into breaking out in a cold sweat on the spot. I'll give you one more chance. You know what to do if something like this happens again, don't you? I won't need to teach you again. Su Jie withdrew his gaze, ultimately deciding not to strip Sangshin of his official title. From among the short, he was a tall man, and though lacking in decisive decision-making as a puppet, he was still competent. Su Jie couldn't find a better replacement, and Sangshin breathed a sigh of relief and wiped the sweat from his forehead. He had felt his soul almost leap out in fright, thinking that in a moment of anger, Su Jie would have him taken down as well. Sir, all the targets have been apprehended. Miao Luan stood before Su Jie with a salute, behind him a line of officials and businessmen being dragged in. Thank you for your efforts. Su Jie patted Miao Luan on the shoulder. It's no trouble at all to serve you, sir. Miao Luan's face showed a simple smile. His family's circumstances had changed dramatically thanks to Su Jie. Gone were the days of not knowing if they would make it to tomorrow. Compared to their current comfortable life, with his mother recovering from a serious illness, his sister able to study and learn culture, and meet in every meal at home. These dramatic improvements in life made him feel that even laying down his life for the man before him would be worth it. While some of the arrested businessmen did not recognize Su Jie more familiar with Lu Yingying, the beautiful CEO of Jekka Company, it was different for the official Mandarin. At the sight of Su Jie, his legs turned to jelly. He had personally experienced the previous regime change, well aware of Su Jie's iron-fisted methods. This man single-handedly instigated the people of the Mande region to eradicate the Mande United Army and executed Lu Wenbo. Afterwards, he conducted a major purge of Mande City's officials. Mandarin himself had ascended to high rank riding on the coattails of that purge. In the Mande region, neither Sangshin nor Lu Yingying had a word that was worth more than this man's. Mr. Su, I'll give back all the money I embezzled. Every last bit to you. Just spare me this once. Mandarin, no longer caring for the mayor's decorum, pleaded in terror. Just because you tampered with my possessions, do you think a simple apology will turn the page? You're thinking too highly of yourself. Su Jie, not bothering with further words, gestured for Jekka security to load everyone onto the military trucks. Mandarin, please beg for mercy on my behalf. Mandarin frantically turned to Sangshin, like a drowning man desperately clutching at anything within reach. Had you known this would happen, why did you do it in the first place? Sangshin sighed, turned his head away, and no longer looked at his former colleague. One after another, the officials and businessmen were loaded onto military trucks. Such scenes were not only happening here. Jekka security was in action all over Mande City. Officials, businessmen, senior executives within Jekka Company, and anyone else on the list was subject to house arrest by Jekka security. The operation persisted throughout the night, and by the next day, all targets listed had been apprehended. In Mande City Prison, Su Jie sat alone in a room, watching as a convict was escorted in. Based on the severity of their crimes, the officials and businessmen captured last night faced differing trials, with the lesser offenders condemned to toil in the mines until death. As for those with more serious offenses, they were brought to Su Jie. Chief, the convict has been brought in. A soldier from Jekka security saluted Su Jie. Su Jie put down the cup of fragrant tea he was holding and waved his hand, saying, "You may leave." The Jekka security guards stationed outside the door retreated, leaving just Su Jie and the newly escorted convict in the room. This convict was a middle-aged man, terrified to the point that his clothes were soaked with sweat. Mr. Su, I've been wronged. I really didn't do anything." Upon seeing Su Jie, the man was desperate to explain. Everyone who comes in says they've been wronged. During your time as head of public security, murder, embezzlement, taking bribes, covering up crimes for others, colluding with gangs. Su Jie recited a list of charges, and with each one, the face of the middle-aged man before him grew more fearful, because he knew what fate awaited him in the hands of Su Jie. You had a good life, a high enough status, yet you repeatedly challenged my bottom line. Did you think I'd be more merciful than Lu Wenba, afraid to deal with you? Su Jie twisted his neck, turned around, and picked up a revolver from the table, loading bullets one by one. This enterprise he had built up from scratch, and he would not allow anyone else to destroy it. You scum from Hua country, this is our Chan country, our land. Even if I were guilty, it would be for the Chan country government to deal with, not for you to arrest me. Seeing Su Jie showing no mercy, the middle-aged man roared, his mind overheated, and despite his handcuffed hands, he actually tried to attack Su Jie. Bang! Su Jie raised the revolver, aimed at the man's thigh, and pulled the trigger. Your land? Ask the hundreds of thousands of people from the Mande region if they welcome the arrival of our Jekka company. Those who don't are just you parasites. You wish too well for yourself. For the crimes you've committed, I'll give you the most fair trial, making sure your death is exceptionally stimulating. Su Jie sneered, pulled the trigger, and the bullets hit the man's limbs, causing him to wail incessantly. Finally, the revolver was pointed at the middle-aged man's forehead, and the trigger was pulled. The bullet penetrated the skull, splitting it open, and a mix of red and white matter spilled everywhere. At the same time, a soul emerged uncontrollably from the corpse's head and was absorbed into the soul-summoning banner that Su Jie had taken out. For such enemies, Su Jie had no mercy, letting their souls become sustenance for his soul-summoning banner, which was a way to utilize the waste one last time. If the middle-aged man knew that after his death his soul would be scattered, leaving nothing behind, who knows if he would still dare to commit those evil deeds. Whoosh whoosh. On the soul-summoning banner, the image of the Een soul drawn with blood became increasingly vivid. Night fell, and the moonlight streamed through the window into the room, a gentle breeze fluttering the soul-summoning banner in Su Jie's hand, with the Een soul figure on it seeming alive, swaying unpredictably with the wind. Still not enough. Su Jie felt the change in the soul-summoning banner and picked up the walkie-talkie, saying, "Bring all the convicts waiting outside here." One after another, Jekka security officers brought in more than 20 convicts into the room. None of them spared a second glance at the body killed on the ground. Su Jie raised his pistol again, this time too lazy for words, and pulled the trigger on the several people in front of him. Don't kill me, don't kill me. Spare me, I don't want to die. You devil. Their short, terrified screams did nothing to cause Su Jie to hesitate as he coldly and mercilessly pulled the trigger over and over. The bullets accurately entered the criminals' brains, taking both their lives and souls. After killing 9 people, the soul-summoning banner absorbed their souls post-death, and it finally underwent earth-shattering changes. An odd, pungent stench of blood and decay filled the room. The light shone on the soul-summoning banner, distorting the rays. The Een souls in the painting cracked their mouths open to their ears. The pitch-dark cavities seemed to silently laugh with faces full of malice and misfortune. The next moment, the Een soul twisted its neck, scraped its hands on the banner, and floated right out from the soul-summoning banner. The Een soul was like a cluster of ashes, its body twisted in form, the eyes hollow and lifeless, emitting an eerie aura, conveying an indescribable weird power as if the souls were shivering. That was a Een soul, the first fully formed Een soul. Ghost! There's a ghost! While Su Jie was appreciating the newly born Een soul, the criminals pushed into the room were shaking in terror. Witnessing such a supernatural event firsthand had an immeasurable impact on their worldview. A group of people huddled together in the corner of the wall, hysterically shouting and yelling. Go! With a soft command from Su Jie, the Een soul floated away, resembling the likeness of phantoms in movies and TV shows, passing directly through solid objects like tables and chairs. At high speed, the Een soul's body elongated and thinned, turning into a curved blade as it instantly passed through one of the criminals' bodies. The criminal's body convulsed once. Despite showing no external or internal injuries, the pupils immediately lost their sparkle. Su Jie noted that as the Een soul, turned into a blade, passed through the man's body, his soul was also torn apart simultaneously. It is extremely difficult to harm a human soul, and even Su Jie currently had no means to directly target a soul. However, the Yin soul itself was born from the condensation of souls and possessed an innate ability to attack souls. The torn soul floated out from the corpse and was directly absorbed into the soul-summoning banner. The attack of the Yin soul did not stop. Its bizarre and eerie figure swept through like a cold wind, passing through each criminal's body and taking their lives as well. Looking around, one by one, the lifeless and cold bodies lay on the ground. If it were not for their still chests, they would seem as if they were sleeping peacefully. The souls of these ordinary people had not undergone any cultivation or purification, so their resistance to the Yin soul was virtually non-existent. As souls were harvested, another new Yin soul condensed on the soul-summoning banner, seemingly sensing the scent of death in the external world. It was eager to drill out, its face revealing madness and chilling coldness, giving people a sense of suffocation. 10 ordinary people's souls to produce one Yin soul. Su Jie muttered to himself, then beckoned with his fingers, directing both Yin souls to charge towards him. Whoosh! As the 2 Yin souls passed through his body, Su Jie felt a mysterious chill. His vision slightly blurred, but was immediately restored. He shook his head and had the Yin soul continue attacking. As the attack went on, one of the Yin souls weakened, its soul body becoming ashen and insubstantial like smoke, seemingly about to disperse into nothingness. It had been scorched by Su Jie's soul. The quantity is too few, he muttered. If there were dozens or hundreds more, perhaps they could truly display their power. Making his judgment as a cultivator, Su Jie's soul was unlike that of ordinary people. It was as impervious as fortified gold, certainly not something a Yin soul or 2 could tear apart. Yin souls could be lethal to ordinary people, but achieving that effect on a cultivator was not so simple, and 1 or 2 Yin souls were not very effective. Human resources are limited, and the range of the soul-summoning banner is also limited. Even if placed in a hospital, the number of souls harvested each day wouldn't be substantial unless I decided to become a thug and kill people to generate souls. Su Jie's gaze flickered. Although he was the only cultivator on Blue Star, he had his own moral boundaries. And if he recklessly killed people to extract souls, he risked exposing himself to various governments. It's often said, if you often walk by the river, you are bound to get your shoes wet. With Su Jie's current strength, if he were to be discovered, facing modern weaponry, he would definitely be no match. Fortunately, killing to extract souls is not part of my plan. There are plenty of other ways to cultivate Yin souls, he reflected. After storing the soul-summoning banner in the storage bag and acquiring valuable experimental data, Su Jie felt even more confident about his plans. He stood up, shot each corpse in the forehead to make sure they were dead, and then called Jekka security to take care of the bodies. He was ready to proceed with the next experiment. 2 days later, in the suburbs of Monday City, Su Jie stepped out of the car and looked at the farm before him, his lips twitching slightly. Why not buy a larger farm? There's still so much cash in the account, he said. His tone somewhat helpless. The scale of the farm from the outside did not meet his needs. This farm outputs 1,500 pigs, 800 sheep, and over 300 cows annually. This is already the largest farm locally. It's not that I didn't want to buy a bigger one. We just can't spend all our money, Lu Yingying explained, feeling aggrieved. After all, the Monday region was still quite undeveloped. Although average incomes had significantly increased after Jekka Company's arrival, they could not compare with those in developed countries. Hence the low consumption of meat. It's a city with a population of several 100,000, right? Is this little farming enough to feed them? Su Jie asked, not knowing where to begin his criticism. This level of farming was barely on par with the township-level farms in Hua Country, and its annual output was just enough for a larger town at most. Eating meat in every meal would definitely not be possible, Lu Yingying added fearfully. Worried Su Jie wouldn't understand, Yingying even pulled out a stack of documents to explain. In Monday, as in the entirety of Chan Country, the livestock industry is very underdeveloped. Large-scale farming enterprises are rare, with most farming based around individual families. many of which raise a few livestock or poultry. According to data officially released by Chan Country, there are currently about 1.2 million water buffalo, 1.6 million sheep, and 4.2 million pigs within the country. Compared to Chan Country's tens of millions of people, meat consumption is very limited. To give a comparison, considering pigs, which are raised the most, Hua Country consumes 900 million pigs a year, with an average person eating almost half a pig a year. In Chan Country, 10 people together consume less than 1 pig per year. Ying explained, laying out the data. Presenting the statistics and documents, Su Jie looked over the surveys about Chan Country and eventually had to acknowledge the facts. Limited by factors such as population, demand, and price, it was extremely difficult to develop large-scale livestock farming in Chan Country. Alright, if it's smaller then it's smaller. Let's just make do for now. Su Jie knew this was a tough ask and instructed, look for other farms. Don't limit yourself to within Chan Country. Our domestic and international farms, especially those big companies specializing in livestock, we can negotiate with them too. I understand. I'll have the company start with the research first. Lu Yingying agreed and then accompanied Su Jie into the farm. There was a distinct smell on the farm, causing Lu Yingying to cover her nose and put on a mask. The manager had been waiting for a long time and hurriedly greeted them as they got out of the car. Mr. Lu, please follow me. The smell inside might be a bit strong. The manager's face bore a flattering smile. Having received the acquisition proposal the day before, he couldn't resist the lure of Jekka Company's substantial offer for more than a few minutes. Lead the way. Let's have a good look around the farm. Su Jie gestured with his hand, and the manager bowed to invite them in. The farm was similar to what Su Jie had seen outside. Although it was the largest in the Mande region, it was particularly crude on the inside. As for the environment and sanitation, let alone mentioning those. In Hua Country, it would be the kind where they would be fined heavily. Our country's livestock industry isn't doing well, especially our large-scale farming. We need to buy processed feed, unlike family farms that can use a bit of pig grass, leftover food to sustain themselves. If swine fever hits, losing many at once, the government doesn't provide subsidies. Before Jekka Company came along, the Mande United Army was still charging us all sorts of taxes. While introducing the farm, the manager also complained about past operational difficulties. As they walked and talked, they visited pigs, sheep, cattle, chicken cages, and so on, with the manager quite proud that his was the largest farm in the Mande region. However, in Su Jie's view, what the manager called large-scale farming was nothing more than township level. Nowhere near the large-scale companies he knew of that process millions of animals annually. This here is our slaughterhouse. The livestock that are let out daily are slaughtered here, then transported by van to town to be sold to vendors. As they walked, Su Jie and his group arrived at the slaughterhouse. Several plump pigs were led into the slaughter room. The butcher, sharpening his knife briskly, deftly inserted the slaughtering knife into the vital parts of the plump pigs. Accompanied by resounding squeals of pigs, as they struggled desperately, the butcher, with some assistance pressing down, efficiently completed the slaughter. The manager cheerfully described the process, while Lu Yingying disliked such scenes. Only Su Jie could see that a soul light point flew towards him, entering the soul-summoning banner in his embrace. I haven't been back to the company for a long time. Now that we have our farm, let's celebrate today. Manager, please have someone butcher the pigs and sheep. Distribute some meat to the employees of Jekka Company. Su Jie casually mentioned this to the manager while watching. Ah, right. I'll have the butcher get to it immediately. Upon hearing this, the manager thought internally of the extravagant spending but dared not delay, quickly instructing the butcher to catch sheep and kill pigs. Yingying, go let the staff know to collect the meat soon. You don't need to stay here. Noticing that Lu Yingying did not enjoy the bloody scene, Su Jie asked her to leave first, while he eagerly continued his visit, watching the slaughtering and conducting his own soul banner experiment. Pig after pig, live sheep, yellow cattle, chickens, ducks, geese, and others were bled and slaughtered, filling the slaughterhouse with strong stenches of animal odors. The range of the soul-summoning banner, capable of capturing souls, generously enveloped the entire slaughtering room. Each type of animal produced a different soul. Su Jie watched the souls of the dead livestock fly out and get absorbed by the soul-summoning banner. He recorded the progress of the third Yin soul on the banner and then made comparisons with his notes. Taking the soul of an ordinary person as an example, the quality of an ordinary person's soul was marked as 1. Although there were differences in soul quality between individuals, the variance was not significant since they were not cultivators. Pig soul 0.033, sheep soul 0.005, cattle soul 0.012, chicken soul 0.0001. Su Jie recorded each piece of data, while also comparing the animal soul data he had gathered during his recent trips into the forests. Eventually, he came to a conclusion. Apart from humans, elephants and primate gorillas had the highest ranking souls. Orca and other whale souls might also be of good quality, but Su Jie hadn't had the chance to find them. Beyond these animals, the soul quality of pigs was the highest, followed by cattle, sheep, and others. Su Jie's attention focused on pigs, creatures often associated with stupidity, yet possessing such high soul quality. It seemed there was indeed a saying that pig intelligence was equivalent to that of a 3- or 4-year-old child. It's decided then, it will be you. Su Jie made a decision in his heart. 30 pig souls equaled the soul of 1 ordinary person. 10 ordinary souls could condense into 1 Yin soul, meaning he would need the souls of 300 pigs to create a Yin soul without having to kill any people. As for other wild animals, even though they might have higher soul quality, their numbers were too few. Even driving them to extinction wouldn't satisfy Su Jie's needs. From an efficiency standpoint, only pigs, the animal whose meat ranked second in human consumption after chicken, were most suitable for cultivating Yin souls. We need to buy a big breeding company as soon as possible. Su Jie was impatient and eager to fully nurture the soul-summoning banner. Once the banner was unfurled, tens of thousands of ghosts and souls would howl, significantly enhancing battle strength beyond comparison. Meanwhile, the 5th Yin soul had also condensed within the soul-summoning banner Su Jie was holding. Mr. Su, do you think these are enough? The factory manager jogged over and looked at the slaughtered animals that had already filled up the slaughterhouse. All right, let these be for now. Su Jie nodded. The livestock in this small breeding farm were too few. Even slaughtering them all would not produce many Yin souls. They still needed those real large-scale breeding farms. After instructing Lu Yingying briefly, Su Jie did not stay for the subsequent meat distribution event, but instead took a car to Fumen Breeding Farm. Fumen Breeding Farm was the largest insect breeding farm in the Mande region, where various insects bought from farmers were mostly brought here. Deep underground in Fumen Breeding Farm, a large batch of Tianyuan poisonous insects from Tianyuan world were continuously devouring the blue star poisonous insects, achieving evolution and transformation. Su Jie took the elevator and arrived at the long unvisited underground poisonous insect cultivation base. At 50 meters underground, as soon as the elevator doors opened, a series of piercing, buzzing sounds entered his ears. After stepping out of the elevator, the view that met his eyes was a floor divided and sealed off by a layer of blue ice curtains. This was the Chengquan Shenbing formation diagram that Su Jie had purchased. Within the array map, many Tianyuan world poisonous insects, having benefited from the incalculable consumption of blue star poison insects every day, had undergone transformations, evolving from Shao Qian, come out, evolve right here. Su Jie released the 1,000-hand centipede. The massive creature, over 10 meters in length, stood upright, its head reaching the feed inlet. Clattering sounds. Huge quantities of spiders, centipedes, venomous snakes, poisonous frogs, and venomous wasps, all bred on the surface, were dumped down the large feed pipeline. These were regularly fed to the underground Tianyuan poisonous insects. The Jekka employees working there were oblivious, thinking that these poisons were merely being experimentally processed. The 1,000-hand centipede opened its vast mouth, and the sensation of food automatically entering its mouth was so delightful that it lingered long after eating its fill, reluctant to leave. However, when it came to evolution, it wasn't something the 1,000-hand centipede could just stop when it wanted. Su Jie took out several hundred blood marrow crystals and personally fed them to the thousand-hand centipede to swallow. The spiritual energy contained in the blood marrow crystals allowed the thousand-hand centipede to achieve its final leap. A thick insect cocoon formed from its outer shell and eventually covered the entire body of the thousand-hand centipede. The cocoon, over 10 meters in length, was a deep red color, pulsing up and down like a beating heart, transforming into a mid-grade poisonous insect. Squeak, buzz, squeal. Perhaps sensing danger, various poisonous insects within the Chengquan Xianbing formation diagram, alarmed by the scent of danger, became restless. They thrashed wildly within the array, trying to distance themselves from the thousand-hand centipede. This transformation of the thousand-hand centipede progressed swiftly. Normally, evolving from a low-grade poisonous insect to a mid-grade one not only took a long time but also carried substantial risks. Any slip-up and, at best, the transformation would fail, damaging the foundation. At worst, it would be fatal. However, as a low-grade 3 refinements poisonous insect, the power of the thousand-hand centipede far exceeded that of a typical mid-grade poisonous insect. This transformation was simply a natural progression, involving no difficulties whatsoever. Compared to past transformations that could easily take 10+ hours, this one took less than 2 hours for the thousand-hand centipede to complete its evolution. When the insect cocoon split open, the emerged thousand-hand centipede was now 20 meters in length. Its insect armor was lustrous and black, tougher than steel, and it had over 200 pale corpse hands, each larger than the thigh of an ordinary person. With the completion of the evolution, every capability of the thousand-hand centipede enhanced, with each of the pale corpse hands possessing an immense strength, easily crumpling steel into mud. The capabilities of self-healing split and purple light ray also were upgraded comprehensively as the thousand-hand centipede evolved into a mid-grade poisonous insect. This was still not the limit of the thousand-hand centipede's evolution. Su Jie patted its head and sequentially deactivated the Chengquan Xianbing formation diagram, releasing the uneasy low-grade poisonous insects inside. Smilingly said, "Go eat. All these are yours." With a shrill scream, numerous pale corpse hands emerged from underneath the thousand-hand centipede, charging ferociously at a low-grade poisonous insect, the evil eye thunder worm. This evil eye thunder worm was the most powerful poisonous insect in the breeding base, its appearance being a basketball-sized solitary eye mounted on top of a pudgy maggot. Boom boom. The solo eye of the evil eye thunder worm blinked, bolts of lightning striking down, smashing onto the massive body of the thousand-hand centipede. The electricity fizzed over its body surface, but the thousand-hand centipede was hardly affected. The disparity in strength between the two was too great. The next moment, the pudgy evil eye thunder worm was grasped by over 10 pale corpse hands and dragged to the mouth of the thousand-hand centipede. In the fierce struggle of the evil eye thunder worm, the thousand-handed centipede swallowed it whole, engulfing it entirely into its stomach. After chewing briefly, this taste, unlike that of the blue star poison insects, was as rich as comparing plain steamed buns and thin porridge to a full Manchu Han imperial feast. The thousand-handed centipede was extremely excited and swiftly rushed toward the next low-grade poisonous insect. The cries of the insects incessantly echoed underground. No matter how much the low-grade poisonous insects resisted, it was futile before the mid-grade 3 refinements thousand-handed centipede, which could only obediently become its food. Visibly, the body of the thousand-handed centipede began to grow. After evolving into a mid-grade poisonous insect, ordinary blue star poison insects could no longer provide growth for the thousand-handed centipede, and the batch of low-grade poisonous insects specially bred by Su Jie became the resource for its continued evolution. He had been waiting for this day for a long time. Once all the low-grade poisonous insects were wiped out, the thousand-handed centipede once again entered a dormant transformation, rushing towards its 4th spirit refining. One day and night later, accompanied by strange sounds, the thousand-handed centipede emerged from the insect cocoon, its body length soaring to 30 meters, reminiscent of a train car, now a powerful mid-grade 4 refinements poisonous insect. Compared to the past, the biggest change in the thousand-handed centipede was the row of sharp, hard spines that grew along the middle line of its back. These hard spines on the back were completely hollow, derived from the spine. The thousand-handed centipede cried out twice, and simultaneously, luminescent patterns, resembling the twisted markings of centipedes, lit up on the hard spines on its back. Its massive body slithered and moved, pairs of pale corpse hands stepping through the air as if treading on nothing, and its dorsal fins maintaining balance. Its body, weighing hundreds of tons, was actually completely airborne, soaring freely in the air like a bird. This was the new ability bestowed upon the thousand-handed centipede by its fourth refinement, flight. Bang, bang, bang. The underground environment was too cramped for the thousand-handed centipede. Although it was thrilling to fly, it wreaked havoc here, accidentally colliding with the walls, resulting in several cracks appearing in the Qianquan Xianbing formation diagram. Stop, stop, stop. Don't wreck my house. Su Jie was distressed beyond measure. A few more bumps, and the Qianquan Xianbing formation diagram he had spent a great deal of money on would definitely be damaged. We can't spread out here. I'll take you to Tianyuan World. Seeing the thousand-handed centipede with big, pitiful eyes, Su Jie sighed, called it back to his side, then reduced its size, opened the ancient mirror, and returned to Tianyuan World. Blue Star had too many satellites. Taking the giant thousand-handed centipede out for a chaotic flight would get discovered in minutes, making headlines in country's news everywhere. Only Tianyuan World was suitable for it to stretch its legs. Coming out from Zhening City, Su Jie took the thousand-handed centipede to a secluded area outside the city. CZSCZ. The thousand-handed centipede cried out twice, then lowered its head in front of Su Jie. Understanding its gesture, Su Jie walked over to its head, sat down, and patted its forehead. Fly, you are free to frolic as much as you want here. Hearing this command, the vast body of the thousand-handed centipede, unfazed by gravity, eagerly soared into the sky. The piercing cold wind blasted against him, causing Su Jie's clothes to flutter noisily. The 30-meter-long body of the thousand-handed centipede was not at all stiff or bloated in the air, flying with remarkable stability. Xiao Qian, fly at top speed. Let me see your limit. Su Jie's mood soared along with the ascent, gradually becoming wilder as he let the thousand-handed centipede fly freely. Rearing its head with a roar, the thousand-handed centipede's tail swayed slightly, bringing a powerful pushback sensation. The distant city gradually shrank, turning into small cubes like Rubik's cubes, until they rose above the clouds. Suddenly, a bright beam of light shone down, and Su Jie raised his head. A vast expanse of blue sky unfolded before him, the cloud layer seeming like an endless ocean of white, slightly shimmering with a misty brilliance. Su Jie spread his arms, the thousand-handed centipede scattering clouds in every direction, resembling a fast-moving boat on the white ocean, akin to a train skyrocketing on its ascent path, blowing through the heavens and earth. Awesome! Su Jie took a deep breath and looked down, mountains and rivers below unfurling like a massive scroll. The speed of the thousand-handed centipede reached its limit. Although it did not break the sound barrier, it was comparable to a civilian helicopter. As the thousand-handed centipede continued to evolve, this speed would continue to increase. High in the sky, the excited thousand-handed centipede exploded into hundreds of thousands of tiny centipedes, like a school of sardines in the sea, sometimes clustering together, sometimes dispersing in all directions. A group of small centipedes, holding on to Su Jie's clothes, carried him to a thick insect blanket formed by the smaller centipedes. Su Jie could freely sit or lie on it, but he was the only one who could enjoy this kind of flight. Ordinary people wouldn't dare lie on this sky-filled blanket of small centipedes. Letting the thousand-handed centipede carry him soaring through the clouds for over an hour, after having his fill of fun, Su Jie finally directed the thousand-handed centipede to land, finding a primeval forest to stop. After tidying his messy hair, Su Jie took out the white bone tree and infused it with spiritual power. The palm-sized white bone tree grew inch by inch, its vigorous roots delving into the earth like coiling dragons, drawing spiritual energy from deep within the earth's veins. The lush tree canopy opened, with air roots hanging down like a woman's black hair, tangled and densely interwoven, absorbing the free-floating spiritual energy in the air. Su Jie sat down with his back against the white bone tree, feeling the rapidly enriching environment of spiritual energy, and motioned to the thousand-handed centipede. Had enough fun? Now it's time to cultivate. The thousand-handed centipede shrank in size and lay on Su Jie's chest, steadily transferring spiritual power and vital energy into Su Jie's limbs and bones. Su Jie closed his eyes and meditated, feeling the subtle changes within his body. The vital energy of the mid-grade 4 refinement's thousand-handed centipede was so strong, it was like a towering mountain. Under the nurturing of the thousand-handed centipede, Su Jie's cultivation climbed incrementally, the gaseous spiritual power in his body continuously compressed further. A gentle breeze passed, the leaves of the white bone tree rustled, and the drifting air roots fell on Su Jie's back, resembling countless pipelines connecting with his flesh. The spiritual energy from the ground and air, transformed by the white bone tree, flowed into his body. Time quietly passed in the silent dense forest, with nothing but the sounds of various small animals and the bubbling noises of the circulation of qi within Su Jie's body. Sometimes slow, sometimes rapid, the sound of its surge was sometimes audible within 100 meters, and at other times only by Su Jie's inner ear. Gradually, impurities began to emerge from Su Jie's pores, contaminants from within his marrow. A faint fragrance emerged from within Su Jie, reminiscent of century-old medicinal herbs, and his skin gradually took on the bright sheen of mutton fat jade. Su Jie's body steadily transcended the category of ordinary beings. In the eyes of some demons, a cultivator like Su Jie was no less precious than a spiritual elixir. Hours later, after repeated attempts, the first drop of spiritual power in Su Jie's dantian was compressed to its limit, condensing from a gaseous state into liquid spiritual power. The spiritual power in the dantian surged violently, transmitting to every meridian, compressing more and more spiritual power into liquid. When all the spiritual power within the body compressed from gas to liquid, it ultimately triggered a qualitative change. The 6th level of Yunling realm was achieved. Su Jie slowly opened his eyes, and in a flash, the spiritual energy divine light flashed through his eyes and shot meters into the void. Feeling the booming life force inside him, which was 7 to 8 times stronger than before, advancing from the 5th to the 6th level of the Yunling realm was the cultivator's first qualitative change. The next qualitative change would have to wait until the 10 levels of Yunling realm, when advancing to the secret realm. Reaching the 6th level of Yunling realm also meant that Su Jie's cultivation had reached the entry standard for an inner disciple of Ghost Ridge Palace. Taking off now. Su Jie's lips curved into a smile. He wasn't just saying it, his body actually took flight, quietly floating in the air. Flying without the aid of any external items is generally something only the secret realm elders could achieve. But through sharing the abilities of the thousand-handed centipede, Su Jie had also mastered flying. However, Su Jie's flight should be called hovering or gliding. He could freely hover off the ground and also glide swiftly from high places, controlling his posture in the air. It wasn't that he couldn't fly, but his flying speed was only a pitiful 10 meters per second, which compared to the soaring of the thousand-handed centipede was virtually crawling. At least it's a flying ability. Su Jie comforted himself. Against enemies who couldn't fly, even though it was slow, he could still leave them staring. He was satisfied with the gains from this breakthrough. The thousand-handed centipede had advanced to mid-grade 4 refinements, and he had successfully broken through to the 6th level of Yunling realm. Although his cultivation was just the entry standard for an inner disciple, in a real fight, there probably weren't many inner disciples at Ghost Ridge Palace who could defeat Su Jie. He got up, packed up the white bone tree, and walked back toward Jining City. "Boss, bring on the good wine and dishes." Inside an inn in Jining City. Having just broken through, Su Jie was somewhat hungry and it was a good time to eat something here. "Right away, young master. Please wait a moment." The waiter hurriedly wiped clean the table and chairs, smiling as he went to the kitchen to pass the order. Because Su Jie had worn some makeup, and the wanted poster was not very accurate, he was not afraid of being recognized. Soon, dishes and drinks were served. Su Jie sat by the window on the 2nd floor, pouring and drinking by himself, when suddenly he heard several noisy shouts coming from the street. "Catch him! Don't let him escape!" A few beggars scrambled out from a street corner, followed by a group of constables chasing to capture them. "The beggars are being driven away. That's not right." Su Jie's eyes shifted slightly, not noticing in his earlier rush, and now he realized that the migrants who had stopped in the city had vanished without a trace. Several days ago, there were a large number of refugees in the city. "Waiter, come here." Su Jie waved to call the waiter over, threw a few copper coins and asked, "I've been away for a few days. Why are there so few refugees in the city now? Could it be that some wealthy family has opened their granary to distribute food and porridge, and the refugees have all rushed over there?" The waiter's eyes lit up as he quickly collected the copper coins and replied, "It's not as you think, young master. These days, who would distribute porridge? The rich families would rather hoard all the grain and wait for the prices to rise before selling." This follows the great victory at the Golden Sand River, where multiple righteous sects collaborated to defeat the Ghost Ridge Palace's slave trading fleet. Later, investigations revealed that those human slaves were refugees. To prevent the refugees from being sold again, these righteous sects came forward together. "The government is involved in this?" Su Jie, incredulous, considering the current administrative level of the Dali dynasty, those officials didn't seem the type to manage refugees at all. If they wanted to manage, they would have done so long before now. Several righteous sects, especially the Guanchao Pavilion, intervened. Even in Qingzhou, this sect is extremely prestigious, so the government has to give them face. Su Jie furrowed his brow and asked, "How does the government manage the refugees?" The waiter looked around cautiously, lowered his voice, and said, "Jingzhou has been severely affected by disasters. The government has mobilized the army to send all the captured refugees back to Jingzhou. Once the refugees are in the Jingzhou area, Qingzhou no longer has jurisdiction over them. To prevent them from coming back, the Qingzhou army has set up quarantine walls at the state border. Anyone who dares to force their way through is shot with arrows." So despicable. Su Jie furrowed his brow again. Such measures were akin to treating human lives like grass, and it was hard to imagine that a dynasty would do such a thing to its own people. "Isn't that the truth?" The waiter also sounded indignant. "I heard that because of this, Jingzhou has also started mobilizing its army, standing off against Qingzhou, unwilling to receive these refugees. Truly shameless, acting like irresponsible landlords." A cold snort, not from Su Jie, but from a nearby dining table, broke the silence. A man in a blue long robe with a sword at his waist and a beard around his jaws slammed the table and stood up, his voice booming like thunder. The waiter was so startled he nearly fell to the ground. "This brother, I accidentally overheard your conversation, and it's truly infuriating. The current court is utterly decadent and certainly not worthy of our allegiance as chivalrous warriors of Jianghu." The bearded man looked at Su Jie, took the initiative to clasp his fists, his face still flushed with anger. Su Jie also stood up and clasped his hands in return, saying, "It appears you are also a man of great generosity. The Dali dynasty has accumulated too many vices. 500 years of rain fallen to this day, akin to the slowly setting sun heading towards its final descent. Pitiful are the common people of this realm. It seems there are still many perceptive people. Haha, how should I address you? I am Dong Hong Tian, hailing from Lanzhou, passing through this place in my journey." Dong Hong Tian, sensing a kindred spirit in Su Jie, took a seat at Su Jie's table and said to the waiter, "Bring some good wine and dishes. It's rare to meet a confidant. Today I shall treat you, and we must drink to our heart's content." Su Chongqing, also on a journey here, quite the coincidence. Su Jie did not reveal his true name, as he was still wanted, and if his identity as a member of Ghost Ridge Palace ever leaked, at least he wouldn't be suspected. "So, it's Brother Su, pleased to meet you." Dong Hongtian, clearly a straightforward man, sat down, clinked glasses with Su Jie, and boisterously said, "You must have also heard about the recent battle at the Golden Sand River and came here on purpose. It's a pity I missed that major event. Even if I wasn't strong enough, I would have drawn my sword to slay demons and exterminate those slave-trading demon cultivators. Su Jie smiled, his expression full of longing. Yes. Recently, the biggest matter in Qingzhou is this event. The battle at the Golden Sand River where the demon cultivators fled in disarray, truly exhilarating. Missing such a gratifying event is truly one of life's great regrets. Dong Hongtian shook his head, about to say more, when his gaze suddenly turned toward the window. It was the constables whom he had been chasing earlier, who were now dragging a group of filthy beggars back along the street, occasionally punching and kicking them. "Brother Su, please wait a moment. I'll be right back." With a slap on the table, Dong Hongtian abruptly rose from his seat, leapt out of the second-floor window, and landed right in front of the constables. "You, as court officials, ought to be arresting thieves and enforcing strict laws rather than beating and kicking beggars and refugees. What is the meaning of this?" Dong Hongtian's voice was extremely loud, his beard quivering with anger, his large, bell-like eyes glowering at the constables. "Where did this stray dog come from? Scram immediately, or I'll throw you in prison too." The leading constable threatened, and had it not been for Dong Hongtian's robust build and muscles that could not be concealed by his clothes, he would have already summoned his men to subdue and bring him to the jail for a good beating to extort some money. "I go by the name Wild Sword Dong Hongtian, and I have not changed it." Dong Hongtian drew his sword, sending multiple sword shadows whistling through the air. His movements as agile as a flying swallow and his strokes as fluid as running water, carrying a wild and domineering aura. The constables were unable to draw their swords in time and were knocked to the ground by the sword's spine. Clang! The entire scene lasted less than 2 seconds. By the time the sword was sheathed once more, none of the constables could stand. All were lying on the ground groaning. "Be more careful in the future, and don't let yourself get caught again." Dong Hongtian took some copper coins from his pocket. Not too many because otherwise, these young beggars wouldn't be able to keep them safe. "Hero, this food has been sent down from upstairs, and it's already been paid for." Just then, the server ran out, handling some durable pancakes to Dong Hongtian. Dong Hongtian looked up to see Su Jie nodding at him. Understanding the situation, Dong Hongtian handed the pancakes to the little beggars and said, "Go on now." "Thank you, uncle." The little beggars, hugging their pancakes, ran off cautiously. Dong Hongtian glanced at the constables on the ground, ignored them, and jumped back up to the second floor. "Brother Dong is truly benevolent." Su Jie immediately offered praise and poured Dong Hongtian a cup of wine. "I apologize for the earlier incident, Brother Su. I can't stand this kind of thing, but thankfully I possess some martial skills, so I can offer help when injustices arise." Dong Hongtian raised his wine glass to Su Jie, drank it with a hearty tilt of the head, and drained it in one go. "Brother Dong, you are too modest. That was surely the skill of the 6th level of the Yunling realm. In the realm of Jianghu martial arts, your strength is among the very top." Su Jie put down his cup and spoke with admiration. The Tianyuan world is a cultivator's realm, endowed with the magical element of spiritual energy. In addition to the Demon Path and Righteous Sect, the major long-standing noble families holding spiritual mountain-blessed lands, ordinary people who wish to access spiritual energy can also learn to fight and strengthen their bodies as a way out. However, compared to the various mystical cultivation methods of the sect, practicing martial arts was a reluctant choice when one lacked innate talent and resources, considered a less favored option. Those in the martial arts community who had mastered their craft could run on rooftops and vault over walls, shatter steels and split rocks, all of which sounded quite impressive. But compared to cultivators, because martial arts use spiritual energy too crudely and lacked spirit stones, magic artifacts, elixirs, and talismans, relying solely on brute force with a weapon, their combat power was a tier below that of cultivators. In Jianghu's martial arts community, having cultivation that could reach the 3rd level of the Yunling realm was enough to be considered a first-class master and a well-known figure. Those who could reach the 5th level of the Yunling realm were amongst the legends of Jianghu, dominating one side and revered as sword gods or great grandmasters. As for those martial artists who had broken through to the 6th level of the Yunling realm, they were almost non-existent. With that level of talent, they would have long since joined a sect to pursue higher cultivation, for who would prefer martial arts over cultivation? Practicing martial arts was a grueling way to temper the body, only to be defeated by a cultivator's flying sword in the end. I dare not presume, my strength is only impressive in front of ordinary people. If I really faced a cultivator, this level of cultivation wouldn't count for much, he said. Dong Hongtian shook his head, quite aware of his own capabilities. The two exchanged drinks, consuming 3 jugs of strong liquor and chatting spiritedly about the recent battle at Golden Sand River. Su Jie had insightful views, being someone who had experienced it personally. Dong Hongtian, a bit tipsy, slapped his sheathed sword on the table, saying, "Brother Su speaks well. There's still an opportunity to strike at the arrogance of Ghost Ridge Palace. I wonder if you're interested." "Oh, that sounds like a good deal. Brother Dong, you must tell me all about it," he replied. Su Jie, discussing demon cultivators and Ghost Ridge Palace, clearly displayed a look of common enmity. With a gulp of strong liquor, Dong Hongtian pounded his chest and declared excitedly, "Most of the Ghost Ridge Palace's slave-trading ships were annihilated in the battle at Golden Sand River, but some managed to break through the blockade. These escaping Ghost Ridge Palace disciples are surely rushing back to their base now." Besides, upon hearing this, many chivalrous warriors in various places, under the summons of several famous martial arts experts, have decided to go to Green Valley Plain, blocking the return route of those Ghost Ridge Palace disciples, intending to annihilate them in the vast wilderness. Going to Green Valley Plain to block them? Su Jie's eyebrow twitched. Green Valley Plain was the green meadow that served as the entrance to the base of Ghost Ridge Palace. It was also a critical thoroughfare for entering and leaving Ghost Ridge Palace. When Su Jie had left Ghost Ridge Palace, he had passed through this plain. It wasn't that other places couldn't access the territory of Ghost Ridge Palace, but the perilous zones restricted by mountainous terrain were no joke, increasing the danger substantially. Some perilous zones even caused Hidden Realm elders to retreat definitively. Exactly, Green Valley Plain. Many heroic figures have already gathered there, not making it easy for those fleeing Ghost Ridge Palace disciples. Dong Hongtian, full of excitement, then said to Su Jie, "Since you, Brother Su, are also a practitioner of martial arts, why not join us and take a trip to Green Valley Plain?" Because Su Jie's cultivation had broken through to the 6th level of Yunling realm, giving him a clear physique, brilliant and spirited eyes, and a presence that naturally changed with his biological magnetic field. Every move radiated an indescribable aura that demanded respect. This led Dong Hongtian to mistakenly assume that Su Jie was also a practitioner of martial arts. Su Jie thought for a moment and asked, "Aren't you afraid of people from Ghost Ridge Palace coming out to fight, especially since they have Hidden Realm elders inside?" "Well, we haven't ventured deep into Green Valley Plain. We're still quite a distance from Ghost Ridge Palace. Besides, with the current situation, if Ghost Ridge Palace doesn't keep a low profile and dares to show off, the major righteous sects definitely won't let them off easy," he replied nonchalantly, confident in their plan. However, he did have a point. Ghost Ridge Palace was like a country that had lost a war. Though the battle at Golden Sand River hadn't damaged their foundation, they likely wouldn't start another war lightly, so as to avoid further trouble.